Welcome to Tales in the Dark. I know many of you enjoy relaxing with these videos, so I recommend turning down the volume until my voice is barely audible. It'll make the experience even more soothing. Before you close your eyes, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and enjoy listening. Story 1. The vacant lot at the end of my street had been empty for as long as I could remember. Overgrown weeds twisted around a rusted chain-link fence, and the cracked pavement held only echoes of something long gone. But tonight, as I turned the corner, a house stood in its place, 2 stories tall, windows dark as if it had always been there. The air smelled of fresh paint, though no workers had been seen. A single light flickered on inside, just for a moment, as if the house had sensed my presence. I blinked hard, expecting the house to vanish like a mirage, but it remained stubbornly solid. My phone felt heavy in my pocket as I pulled it out to take a picture, but the screen went black before I could unlock it. When it finally powered back on, the camera app showed only static, a gray fog where the house should have been. The wind carried the scent of petrichor, rain on dry earth, yet the ground beneath my feet was bone dry. Something about that smell pulled at my memories, but I couldn't place why. As I stood there, the crickets fell silent one by one, leaving behind a vacuum of sound that made my ears ring. I should have walked away, should have gone home and forgotten about it. Instead, I found myself approaching the front gate. The metal latch was warm to the touch, despite the cool evening air. It swung open without a sound, though its hinges were spotted with rust. The front walk was lined with river stones, each one perfectly placed, too perfect. I knelt to touch one, and it pulsed beneath my fingers like a sleeping heart. When I jerked my hand back, the stone looked normal again, but I could still feel its phantom beat against my skin. My rational mind tried to make sense of it all. New construction happened all the time, though never this quickly, never this quietly. Perhaps I had simply failed to notice the building process, too caught up in my daily routine. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. This house had appeared between my morning commute and evening return, fully formed, as if birthed from the empty lot itself. The porch steps creaked under my weight, each board singing a different note, forming a discordant melody that made my teeth ache. The front door was painted a deep burgundy that seemed to shift and swirl when viewed directly, but remained still in my peripheral vision. No doorbell, just a brass knocker in the shape of a hand, fingers curled inward, knuckles ready to strike. I reached for it, but before I could make contact, a sound emerged from behind the door. Not footsteps, not voices, but something that reminded me of paper being slowly torn, or perhaps skin being peeled from fruit. The sound grew louder, closer, until it filled my head with its wet, organic rhythm. The door handle turned on its own. Inside, the house was larger than its exterior suggested. The entry hall stretched far beyond what should have been possible, its wallpaper pattern repeating endlessly. Vines and leaves that seemed to writhe when I wasn't looking directly at them. Family photos lined the walls, their frames empty, save for dark smudges that might have been faces, might have been shadows. A grandfather clock stood against one wall, its pendulum swinging in irregular patterns, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes stopping entirely before starting again. Its face showed no numbers, only spiraling lines that made me dizzy if I stared too long. The air grew thick with the scent of old books and something metallic, like copper pennies held too long in a sweaty palm. My footsteps echoed strangely, as if the floor beneath the carpet was hollow, or perhaps wasn't there at all. Each room I passed seemed to rearrange itself after I left it, furniture sliding into new positions, doors appearing and disappearing. In what might have been the living room, a television played static, its screen reflecting things that weren't in the room with me. I saw myself standing in the doorway, but the reflection me was wrong somehow. It moved a fraction of a second before I did, its eyes too wide, its smile too sharp. The kitchen held a dining table set for one, with a plate of food that looked fresh but carried the sweet, sour smell of decay. Steam rose from the meal, forming shapes that reminded me of faces I used to know, faces I couldn't quite remember anymore. The silverware was arranged with mathematical precision, each piece exactly the same distance from its neighbors. As I moved deeper into the house, the walls began to breathe. Subtle at first, just the slightest expansion and contraction like sleeping lungs. But it grew more pronounced with each step, until I could hear the wet sounds of tissue and muscle flexing behind the wallpaper. The temperature rose and fell in waves, matching the rhythm of those unseen breaths. Upstairs, the hallway twisted in ways that defied geometry. Doors lined both sides, but when I opened them, they all led to the same room. A child's bedroom, perfectly preserved, yet somehow wrong. The toys were too new, their colors too bright, as if they had never been played with. A music box sat on the dresser, playing a lullaby in reverse. The mirror above the dresser showed the room behind me, but not me. Instead, it reflected a figure standing in the doorway, tall and thin, its proportions subtly wrong. When I turned to look, the doorway was empty, but in the mirror, the figure remained, now closer, now smiling with too many teeth. I ran. The hallway stretched and contracted around me, the doors multiplying, the walls pulsing faster. The stairs beneath my feet felt soft and yielding, like running on flesh rather than wood. The front door appeared before me, but when I threw it open, it led to another room, identical to the first one I had entered. My phone rang in my pocket, playing a ringtone I had never set. When I answered it, I heard my own voice, speaking words I hadn't said yet. The voice was describing exactly what was happening to me, always a few seconds ahead, narrating my growing panic as I tried door after door, finding only more rooms, more mirrors, more wrong reflections. The house was digesting me, I realized. Each new room was deeper inside its impossible geometry, its organic architecture. The air grew thicker, warmer, carrying the copper penny smell of blood and the sweet rot of decay. The walls breathed faster, hungrier. Finally, I found a door that opened to the outside. I burst through it, gasping in the cool night air, my shoes crunching on the gravel of the front walk. But something was wrong. The street beyond the gate was different. The houses unfamiliar, their shapes too angular, their windows too dark. And when I looked back at the house I had fled, I saw my own face in every window, watching myself with eyes that glowed like dying stars. I live in a new house now, in a different neighborhood. I tell myself it was all a dream, a hallucination, a temporary break from reality. But sometimes when I walk past empty lots, I smell fresh paint and petrichor. Sometimes my reflection moves a moment before I do. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I hear my phone ring with that strange tone. And I know if I answer it, I'll hear my own voice, telling me about the house that wasn't there yesterday, but will be there tomorrow, waiting for someone else to find it, to feed it, to become part of its ever-growing collection of rooms and reflections and memories that never quite happened. The house that wasn't there yesterday is still out there, moving from lot to lot, city to city, gathering stories like mine. And if you ever turn a corner and see a house that wasn't there before, with perfect river stones and a brass knocker shaped like a hand, remember my story. Remember that some doors, once opened, never truly close again. Remember that some houses aren't meant to be homes, they're meant to be hungry. Story 2. Sorting through dusty boxes in my grandmother's attic, I ran my hands along the uneven wooden panels of the far wall. My fingers brushed against something metal, a doorknob. My pulse quickened. I had spent years in this house, but there had never been a door here. The air was thick with the scent of mothballs and aged paper, but as I hesitated, another smell crept in, cold and damp, like stone after a heavy rain. Slowly I turned the knob. The door opened with a whisper, revealing nothing but darkness beyond. My phone's flashlight revealed worn stone steps descending into blackness. The beam caught floating dust motes that seemed to dance in patterns too precise to be natural. A faint vibration hummed through the floor, so subtle I might have imagined it. I should have closed the door, should have walked away. But my grandmother's recent death had left too many questions unanswered, too many family secrets buried. If this door held any clues about her past, I needed to know. The first step creaked under my weight but held firm. The second felt solid too. As I descended, the temperature dropped steadily. My breath formed visible clouds despite the summer heat above. The walls were rough-hewn stone, slick with moisture that shouldn't exist in a supposedly wooden attic. 7 steps down, I heard it, a sound like someone slowly dragging their fingers across piano strings, metallic and musical but discordant. It stopped when I did, resumed when I moved. Each step produced a different note, forming a melody that made my skin crawl. At the bottom, the passage opened into a circular room with smooth walls. My flashlight beam revealed writing etched into the stone, hundreds of equations and diagrams I didn't understand. In the center stood a pedestal holding what looked like an old tape recorder. I pressed play before I could stop myself. Static crackled, then my grandmother's voice emerged, younger than I'd ever heard it. Test subject 14 responded as expected to the frequency adjustments. Reality distortion increasing at predicted intervals. The barrier continues to thin. The recording continued with numbers and technical terms I couldn't follow, but one phrase caught my attention. The doorway remains stable, though the other side grows more aggressive in its attempts to break through. A scratching sound behind me made me spin around. The stairs had vanished. The doorway I'd entered through now showed only smooth stone. My flashlight flickered, and in that moment of darkness, I felt something brush against my cheek, soft like cobwebs, but warm. The recorder kept playing, but now other voices mixed with my grandmother's, whispers in languages I didn't recognize, growing louder. The equations on the walls began to shift, symbols rearranging themselves into new patterns that hurt my eyes to look at. I fumbled with my phone, trying to document what I was seeing. The camera app opened to show a swirling mass of colors where the walls should be. As I watched, shapes began to form in the chaos, faces pressing through the stone like masks, mouths opening in silent screams. The recorder's speaker crackled. If you're hearing this, you found your way in. I'm sorry. I tried to seal it off, to protect you all from what we discovered. But it was too late. It had already chosen its next gateway, you. My grandmother's voice grew distorted, mixing with other sounds. The scraping of metal on stone, the hum of cosmic radiation, the rhythm of 1,000 heartbeats. The walls pulsed now, breathing in perfect synchronization with my own racing heart. I pressed my hands against the stone, searching for any crack or seam. The surface felt organic, almost alive. Under my palms, patterns spread like ink in water, forming spirals that matched the ones I'd been seeing in my dreams for weeks before my grandmother died. The recorder spoke again, but no longer in any human voice. The sound it produced resonated with the symbols on the walls, making them glow with a pale blue light. In that illumination, I saw my shadow cast multiple times, each one moving independently of my own motion. My phone recorded everything, though I couldn't bring myself to watch the footage. The screen showed the battery draining rapidly, numbers counting down along with strange characters I'd never seen before. Just before it died, I saw my own reflection, but my face was wrong, aging and de-aging, shifting through versions of myself that had never existed. The humming grew louder, resolving into a chord that made my teeth ache. The equations on the walls began to move faster, flowing like mercury. They formed new patterns, revealing glimpses of places that couldn't exist, geometries that broke the rules of space itself. I felt it then, a presence vast and ancient becoming aware of me. The air grew thick, making each breath a struggle. Reality buckled around me, space folding in impossible ways. Through the distortion I saw other rooms, other versions of this chamber, each containing another version of myself, all connected by equations that wrote themselves across our skin. My grandmother's final message played. The equations were never meant to be solved. They were a warning, written in mathematics, because human language couldn't contain the truth. We opened something that should have stayed closed, created a door that shouldn't exist. Now it's part of us, written into our genetic code. I tried to protect you, but inheritance isn't just about property and blood. It's about the weight of discoveries that can never be undone. The room contracted, reality condensing around me. The equations burned themselves into my mind, revealing truths that reshaped my understanding of existence. I saw the pattern now. The door hadn't appeared by chance. It had always been here, waiting, growing like a crystal in the foundations of reality. When consciousness returned, I found myself back in the attic, slumped against the wooden wall. No door, no knob, no evidence of what had happened. But the equations remained, swimming behind my eyes, restructuring my thoughts into new geometries. My phone was in my hand, restored to full power. The video I'd recorded showed only static, but in that visual noise, patterns emerged, the same equations from the walls, endlessly repeating. Each time I watch it, I understand more. Each viewing pulls the door's influence further into this world. Sometimes, when I pass mirrors, I catch glimpses of that circular room reflected behind me. The equations write themselves in the steam on my shower door, in the condensation on windows, in the margins of every paper I touch. They're spreading through me, using my hands to reproduce themselves, preparing for something I can barely comprehend. The door in the attic doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't need to. It lives in the mathematics of my DNA now, in the spaces between thoughts. My grandmother's last gift was not her house or her possessions, but this, an inheritance of impossible knowledge, a key to doors that lead everywhere and nowhere. I write this as a warning, but I know it's also an invitation. The equations want to be found, to be understood. Even now, they're shifting, adapting, reaching out through these words to find new gateways, new minds to inhabit. If you've read this far, you've already begun to see them, haven't you? In the patterns of letters, in the spaces between lines, in the geometry of your own thoughts. The door in the attic doesn't exist, but it never needed to. The real doors have always been inside us, waiting to be opened. And once opened, they can never truly be closed again. Story 3. At my uncle's old estate, I had always known the layout of the house by heart. Every hall, every creaking floorboard, every dusty corridor. But as I walked past the study, something caught my eye. A door at the end of the hall where I was certain there had never been one before. The wallpaper around it looked older, as if the house had built itself around this hidden space. A faint, rhythmic tapping came from the other side, steady and patient. I pulled out my phone to take a picture, but the screen showed nothing but static where the door should have been. When I lowered the device, the door remained there, solid and real, its brass handle reflecting the warm light from the wall sconces in a way that seemed wrong, too bright, too inviting. The tapping continued, each sound precise and measured. My rational mind insisted this was impossible. I had spent countless summers in this house, memorizing every corner during endless games of hide and seek with my cousins. This door simply couldn't exist. I approached it slowly, running my fingers along the wall. The wallpaper felt different here, cooler, almost damp to the touch. The pattern shifted subtly under my fingertips, tiny flowers becoming thorny vines that seemed to twist away from my hand. The brass handle was ice cold when I gripped it. As I turned it, the tapping stopped, replaced by a deep silence that pressed against my eardrums. The door opened with surprising ease, revealing a room that defied logic. It was a perfect cube, windowless, with walls covered in what appeared to be thousands of Polaroid photographs. Each one showed the same image, this very room, but empty. In the center stood a wooden table with a single white envelope. The air inside carried a sweet, cloying scent that reminded me of overripe fruit and old perfume. My footsteps made no sound as I entered. The door closed behind me with a soft click, but I barely noticed. My attention was fixed on the photographs. Moving closer, I realized they weren't identical after all. In each one, the shadows fell slightly differently, as if the room had been photographed over and over throughout the day. But there were no lights, no windows to cast these changing patterns. The envelope on the table bore my name in handwriting I recognized as my uncle's. He had disappeared while I was still a child, leaving behind a library of strange books and a collection of antique cameras. The family never spoke of him, and eventually his presence faded from our memories like an old photograph left in the sun. I picked up the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one sentence: "The room remembers what we choose to forget." Below these words was a Polaroid camera, identical to the one my uncle had always carried. A subtle movement caught my eye. One of the photographs on the wall had changed. It now showed me, standing exactly as I was, holding the letter. But the image was wrong. In it, I was looking up at something above my head. Slowly, I raised my eyes to the ceiling. Hundreds of identical cameras hung suspended by thin wires, their lenses pointed down at me. As I watched, they began to click in unison, each flash burning brighter than the last. When my vision cleared, the room had changed. The photographs now showed different scenes. Moments from my childhood I had forgotten, conversations I couldn't remember having, faces I should have known but didn't. And in each one, standing in the background, was my uncle, watching. I grabbed the camera from the table and raised it to my eye. Through the viewfinder, I saw the room as it truly was. Not a room at all, but an endless corridor of mirrors reflecting each other into infinity. In every reflection, my uncle stood behind me, his face a blur of static, his hand reaching out. The sweet smell grew stronger, and the air became thick with the sound of mechanical whirring. The cameras above began to drop, their wires snapping one by one. I pressed the shutter button just as they fell, capturing whatever truth lay hidden in this impossible space. The developed photograph slid out slowly, showing only darkness at first. But as the image emerged, I saw something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't the room, or the cameras, or even my uncle. It was a photograph of myself as a child, standing in this very spot, holding this very camera. And behind my younger self stood another figure, me as I was now, taking the picture I held in my hands. The walls began to pulse with a dull red light. The photograph started to peel away, revealing more photographs underneath, each one showing the same scene from slightly different angles, creating a dizzying spiral of recursive images. The floor beneath my feet felt less solid with each passing moment. I tried to run for the door, but it had vanished, replaced by more photographs. They were changing faster now, showing events that hadn't happened yet. Myself growing older, returning to this room again and again, each time forgetting I had ever been here before. The camera in my hands grew warm, then hot. Through its viewfinder, I could see the truth unfolding. This room was a trap, a loop in time created by my uncle's obsession with preserving memories. Each photograph was a moment stolen from reality, a fragment of time trapped in endless recursion. My fingers found the shutter button again. If this room was built from captured moments, perhaps I could break the cycle by refusing to capture more. I raised the camera one last time, not to take a picture, but to see what lay beyond the viewfinder's frame. What I saw changed everything I understood about memory and reality. The room wasn't just collecting images, it was collecting choices, possibilities, versions of ourselves that could have been. Each photograph was a window into another life, another path not taken. The camera crumbled to dust in my hands. The photographs on the walls began to fade, revealing bare concrete beneath. But the images didn't disappear completely. They sank into the walls, becoming part of the room's fabric, waiting for the next person who would discover this door and step inside. I found myself back in the hallway, the door behind me now just a slight discoloration in the wallpaper. The tapping had stopped. My phone showed no evidence of static, no sign that anything unusual had occurred. But in my pocket, I felt the weight of a single photograph, the last one I had taken, the one that showed all possible versions of myself converging in this single moment. The image remains unclear, changing slightly each time I look at it. Sometimes I see myself as a child, sometimes as I am now, sometimes as someone I might become. But always, in the background, my uncle watches, his face both familiar and strange, as if he too is caught between memory and forgetting. Now I understand why he disappeared, why he chose to step into that room and never return. He didn't leave, he multiplied, becoming every version of himself that ever could have been. And somewhere, in one of those infinite variations, he's still taking photographs, still trying to capture the moment when memory becomes reality, when the past and future collapse into a single eternal present. I keep the photograph with me always, though I never show it to anyone. Sometimes late at night, I hear that familiar tapping, and I know the door has appeared again, waiting for me to make a different choice, to become another version of myself. But I resist the urge to look for it. Some rooms, once entered, never truly let you leave. They become part of you, a hidden space where memory and reality blur, where what we choose to forget remembers us instead. Story 4. The backyard had always been a peaceful place. Tall trees swayed lazily in the wind, and the soil carried the scent of fresh earth and wildflowers. But this morning, as I crouched near the garden beds, I heard it, a whisper, soft and breathy, rising from the ground. I froze, my hands still buried in the dirt. The voice was neither distant nor carried by the wind. It was close, too close, coming from beneath me. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks. The whisper was barely audible, like the rustle of dead leaves, but it had a distinct cadence that made my skin crawl. I pulled my hands from the soil, wiping them against my jeans, but the voice persisted. A low, continuous murmur that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of my own heartbeat. I pressed my ear to the ground, telling myself I was being ridiculous. The earth felt unusually warm against my cheek, and the scent of decay mixed with something sweeter, something that reminded me of fermented fruit. The whispers grew clearer, forming patterns that almost resembled words, but in a language I couldn't quite grasp. My rational mind suggested underground pipes, perhaps carrying water or gas, but this sound was different. It had intention behind it, a deliberate quality that made me think of consciousness. I began recording the sounds on my phone, hoping to analyze them later or prove to myself that I was imagining things. But when I played back the recording, what I heard made my blood run cold. Beneath the ambient noise of wind and rustling leaves, a distinct voice spoke words I still couldn't understand, but now seemed to follow a rhythmic pattern, like a chant or prayer. I started documenting everything in a notebook. The voice appeared each morning, growing slightly louder with each passing day. The garden itself began to change. Plants grew at impossible rates, their leaves taking on unusual shapes and colors. Flowers bloomed out of season, their petals arranged in geometric patterns I'd never seen in nature. The sweet rot smell intensified, and the soil remained warm to the touch even during cold nights. My neighbors' gardens remained normal, their plants following the natural rhythm of the seasons. But my yard had become something else entirely. The trees seemed to lean inward, creating a canopy that cast strange shadows on the ground. These shadows didn't always match the position of the sun, and sometimes they moved independently of their casting objects. I set up cameras to monitor the garden overnight. The footage showed subtle movements in the soil, as if something beneath was shifting, trying to break through. But it was the audio that disturbed me most. The whispers had evolved into a chorus of voices, all speaking in that same unknown language, rising and falling like waves. The changes accelerated. Small objects left in the garden disappeared overnight. Garden tools, gloves, even stones I had used to mark the beds. The soil developed a strange texture, becoming almost flesh-like to the touch, yielding and resilient. When I dug into it, it seemed to heal itself, closing up behind my shovel like a wound scabbing over. I began to dream of the garden. In my sleep, I understood the whispers perfectly, though I could never remember their meaning upon waking. I'd find myself sleepwalking to the yard, standing barefoot on the warm earth, my toes sinking into soil that felt like it was gently pulling me down. My attempts to document the phenomenon became more desperate. I took soil samples, but they appeared normal under my microscope. I measured radiation levels, temperature variations, and electromagnetic fields. Each reading came back just slightly off normal. Not enough to prove anything was wrong, but enough to keep me questioning my sanity. The voice began calling my name. It started as a gentle whisper, barely distinguishable from the other sounds, but grew more insistent each day. The way it pronounced my name was wrong somehow, as if it was learning human speech by imitation. The garden responded to my presence now. Flowers turned to face me as I walked past, their petals quivering. The grass bent away from my feet, creating paths before I stepped on them. I tried to destroy the garden. I poured salt on the soil, sprayed herbicides, even considered burning it all down. But everything I did only seemed to feed whatever lived beneath. The plants grew back stronger, more twisted. The voices multiplied, and now they laughed, a sound like roots cracking through stone. One morning, I found perfect replicas of my footprints pressed into the soil, as if something had been studying how I walk. The prints led to the center of the garden, where the ground had sunken into a perfect spiral. At its center, the earth pulsed like a heart beating. I knew I should leave, sell the house, run away. But the voice had become part of me now. It whispered secrets that made terrible sense, promises that filled the hollow spaces in my mind. The garden had spread beyond its boundaries, sending roots through the foundations of my house. I found tiny shoots breaking through my bedroom floor, their leaves unfurling in the dark. My phone is full of recordings now, hundreds of hours of whispers that grow clearer every day. Sometimes, when I play them backward, I hear my own voice answering. I don't remember speaking to it, but I must have. The things I say in those recordings sound like prophecies or instructions, but I'm afraid to transcribe them. The spiral in the garden grows deeper each day. The voice tells me it's almost ready, that soon I'll understand everything. I've started sleeping in the garden, letting the warm earth cradle me. The soil no longer feels foreign against my skin. Sometimes I wake to find tender shoots growing through the spaces between my fingers, binding me gently to the ground. Yesterday I found a new recording on my phone. In it, my voice speaks clearly, but the words aren't mine. They tell a story about a garden that serves as a mouth for something vast and patient, something that has waited centuries to find the right person to tend it. The voice explains that gardens aren't meant to grow upward, that we've misunderstood their true purpose all along. This morning as I write this, the spiral has opened wider. The sweet rot smell has become beautiful to me now, and I understand that decay is just another form of blooming. The voice no longer comes from beneath the garden. It speaks through the rustle of leaves, the creaking of branches, the soft sigh of petals opening in the dark. I've buried my phone in the garden. It seems right that it should remain here, recording whatever comes next. If you find these recordings, please understand that I wasn't taken. I was chosen. The garden has been waiting for someone who could hear its voice, who could help it grow in the right direction. Down, always down. The spiral is calling. I can feel the truth waiting at its center, pulsing like a seed about to break open. And I finally understand, I'm not here to tend this garden, I'm here to become it. Story 5. I had driven this stretch of road dozens of times, but something was different tonight. Where there had once been endless fields of open land, now stood a dense forest, stretching far beyond the reach of my headlights. The trees were impossibly tall, their thick branches swaying without a breeze. The air smelled of pine and damp moss, rich with the scent of something untouched for centuries. And then, deep within the shadows, I saw them, two small, glimmering lights. Eyes, watching. My first instinct was to drive on, to dismiss what I was seeing as fatigue playing tricks on my mind. But those eyes held me transfixed, and before I could process my actions, I had pulled onto the shoulder of the road. The engine's quiet hum died away, leaving me in a silence so complete it felt like pressure against my eardrums. I reached for my phone, intending to check my navigation app to confirm what I already knew. This forest couldn't exist here. The screen flickered to life, but instead of showing my location, the map displayed a strange error. Where the forest stood, my phone showed only empty farmland. I took a screenshot, something inside me already knowing I'd need proof of this discrepancy. The air coming through my cracked window carried a new scent now, something sweet and organic, like overripe fruit on the verge of decay. It should have repelled me, but instead it drew me in, making my mouth water even as my stomach clenched with unease. I found myself stepping out of the car, my boots crunching on gravel that seemed to whisper beneath my feet. The forest loomed before me, a wall of darkness punctuated by those watching eyes, now multiplied. Dozens of pairs blinked in the shadows, each one a different height, each one reflecting light that had no source. I pulled out my phone again, this time opening the voice recorder app. I'm standing outside what appears to be a forest. I spoke softly, my words feeling inadequate. The forest isn't showing on any maps. There are lights in the trees that look like eyes, but that's impossible. The air smells wrong, sweet, like rotting fruit, but not unpleasant. A branch cracked somewhere in the darkness, and I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. The eyes moved, shifting positions in ways that defied natural movement patterns. They didn't bounce as animals would when walking. They simply relocated, like stars rearranging themselves in the night sky. I should have left. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to get back in the car and drive away. Instead, I took a step forward, then another. The ground beneath my feet changed from gravel to soft earth that seemed to give too much under my weight, as if I was walking on something breathing. The trees were wrong. Up close, their bark wasn't bark at all, but something smooth and warm to the touch. When I pressed my hand against one trunk, I felt a subtle vibration, like a purr or a pulse. I pulled my hand back quickly, but my skin tingled where it had made contact. I held my phone close to the trunk, recording video now. The camera showed only darkness, but when I played back the footage, I heard something in the background. A sound like words spoken backward, or perhaps a language I'd never heard before. The sweet smell grew stronger, and with it came a sense of invitation. The forest wanted me to enter, to walk between those living trees with their impossible texture. The eyes watched, patient and knowing, as if they had been waiting for me all along. I took another step forward, and the ground squished beneath my feet. Looking down, I saw what appeared to be roots, but they were moving, writhing like fingers trying to grasp at my boots. I started recording again, narrating in a whisper. The roots are moving. They're reaching for me. This isn't possible. The trees feel warm, living, too living. A sound emerged from deeper in the forest. Not quite a voice, not quite music, but something that contained elements of both. It resonated in my chest, making my heart beat in sync with its strange rhythm. My phone's screen began to distort. the display showing cascading pixels before going dark completely. The forest floor continued to move beneath me, and I realized with growing horror that what I had taken for fallen leaves was actually a single, undulating surface. It rippled outward from my footsteps like skin responding to touch. I tried to step back, but the ground had become adhesive, holding my boots firmly in place. My heart raced as I struggled to free myself, but each movement only seemed to entertain my audience of glowing eyes. They blinked in sequence now, creating patterns that drew shapes in the darkness. The shapes began to suggest meanings, like a language written in light and shadow. I pulled harder, finally breaking free with a sound like tearing Velcro. But as I stumbled backward, I noticed something wrong with my boots. The soles had begun to merge with whatever material covered the forest floor, and strings of it stretched between my feet and the ground like strands of thick honey. The air grew thicker, the sweet smell now overwhelming. It filled my lungs with each breath, and I could feel it changing something inside me. My thoughts became syrupy and slow, while my senses sharpened to an almost painful degree. I could hear the forest breathing, not the sound of wind through leaves, but actual inhalation and exhalation coming from everywhere at once. I fumbled with my phone, desperate to document what was happening. The screen flickered back to life, but the image it showed wasn't the forest around me. Instead, I saw myself from above, standing in a patch of empty field. The perspective shifted, showing me from different angles, as if multiple cameras were circling. But there were no cameras, only those ever-watching eyes. The trees began to bend, their smooth trunks curving inward to form a dome over my head. The eyes moved with them, maintaining their vigilant observation. I noticed now that my skin had begun to take on their luminescent quality, developing small points of light that pulsed in rhythm with the forest's breathing. I tried to run, but the ground caught at my feet again. This time, when I pulled free, I left my boots behind. My bare feet sank into the living forest floor, and I felt something like electricity shoot up through my legs. Information flooded my mind, images, sensations, and knowledge that wasn't my own. I saw the forest as it truly was. Not a collection of trees, but a single vast organism that had somehow manifested here, pushing through from somewhere else. The dome of trees continued to close above me, and the eyes drew closer. Their light intensified, and in their glow, I finally saw their true nature. They weren't eyes at all, but nodes, points of connection to whatever dimension this thing had emerged from. Each one was a window, and through those windows, I caught glimpses of landscapes that defied comprehension. My phone recorded one final message before its battery drained completely. I understand now. The forest isn't here. We're the ones who aren't here anymore. It didn't appear on this road. We crossed into its territory, and I don't think it plans to let me leave. The forest floor rose up around my legs like rising water, warm and alive. The sweet smell had become part of my breathing, indistinguishable from the air itself. The eyes pulsed brighter, and I felt my own skin beginning to change, becoming smoother, more like the bark of these impossible trees. I should be terrified. I should be fighting harder to escape. But the forest has shown me things, taught me truths that make my old life seem like a dream. The lights beneath my skin pulse in sync with the eyes now, and I can feel myself becoming part of whatever this is. My thoughts are changing, expanding, connecting to something vast and ancient and patient. I know now why the forest wasn't on any map. You can't map a place that exists between places, a consciousness that spreads across realities like roots through soil. I've become part of its story now, another set of watching eyes in the darkness, waiting for the next traveler who notices something different about this stretch of road, and I can feel them coming. Headlights in the distance, growing brighter. Another car slowing down, another curious soul about to discover what happens when you find something that shouldn't exist. I want to warn them. to tell them to drive on. But the forest has other plans, and I am the forest now. My skin has become bark, my blood runs with sap, and my eyes, my new, glowing eyes, watch and wait, ready to welcome another observer into our endless night. Story 6. I never understood how memories could betray you until that photograph changed. Everyone told me I was losing my mind, that photographs don't simply change overnight. But I know what I saw, what I continue to see, and how that single image has irreversibly altered my perception of reality. The photograph had hung in our hallway since I was young, a cherished family moment captured in fading color. My father's strong shoulders supporting my small frame, my mother's gentle smile radiating warmth, our house standing proudly behind us. I must have walked past it thousands of times, barely giving it a second glance. But that morning, something made me stop. At first, I couldn't pinpoint what felt wrong. It was like when you walk into a room and know something's been moved, but can't immediately identify what. My eyes scanned the familiar image, trying to make sense of the unease growing in my stomach. Then I saw it, my father's face. Where once had been his warm, familiar features was now a smudged blur, as if someone had taken their thumb and dragged it across wet paint. But photographs don't behave like wet paint. I stepped closer, my morning coffee forgotten in my hand. The blur wasn't just a fault in the printing or some trick of the light. It was deliberate, methodical even, as if someone or something had carefully erased his features while leaving everything else intact. And there in the background, partially hidden behind my mother's shoulder, stood a figure I had never seen before. The figure was tall, wearing what appeared to be a dark coat, but its features were indistinct, like a shadow given form. My hands trembled as I lifted the frame from the wall, the familiar weight now somehow wrong in my grasp. The glass was cool against my fingertips as I traced the outline of the mysterious figure. No matter how close I looked, its features remained frustratingly out of focus, as if refusing to be properly seen. I took photos of the photograph with my phone, determined to document this impossible change. But when I looked at the screen, my heart nearly stopped. In the digital image, the figure appeared closer to the foreground, as if it had shifted position between the original photo and my documentation of it. I took another shot, and another, each image showing the figure in a slightly different position, gradually approaching my family in the frame. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the photograph, about my father's erased face, about that figure moving closer with each new image I took. I got up several times to check the photo, using my phone's flashlight to examine it in detail. Each time, something new seemed off. My mother's smile grew strained. My childhood self's grip on my father's hair tightened. The colors in our clothing shifted ever so slightly toward darker shades. I began documenting everything. I set up a camera to record the photograph day and night, hoping to catch the moment of change. I took detailed notes, measuring the distances between figures in the image, noting the subtle shifts in color and shadow. The more I observed, the more I noticed how the photograph seemed to respond to my attention. When I watched it directly, nothing would change. But the moment I turned away, reviewed my footage, or checked my previous notes, new alterations would appear. The figure grew more prominent with each passing day. Its presence began to affect the other elements of the photo. The sky behind our house darkened, the windows of our home reflected impossible shadows, and the grass at our feet began to look less like grass and more like reaching, grasping fingers. My mother visited after I missed several of her calls. She found me surrounded by notebooks filled with observations, my walls covered in printouts of the various stages of the photograph's transformation. She tried to convince me that the photo hadn't changed, that it was exactly as it had always been. But when I showed her my documentation, my recordings, she grew quiet. She stared at the original photograph for a long while before asking me a question that chilled me to my core. When was the last time you actually saw your father? I opened my mouth to answer, but stopped. I could remember him clearly, his laugh, his smell, the strength of his shoulders as he carried me. But when I tried to place these memories in time, to connect them to specific moments, they slipped away like smoke. Had he been there for my graduation, my first job, the holiday dinner last year? Each memory I reached for seemed to blur at the edges, just like his face in the photograph. The camera footage revealed something new that night. In the darkest hours, when the house was silent except for the hum of electronics, the figure in the photograph moved. Not just between frames or in subtle shifts of position, it moved fluidly, like a living thing. It walked around the frozen forms of my family, examining us from every angle. Sometimes it reached out toward my father's blurred face, its own features becoming momentarily clearer in the reflection of the glass. I wanted to take the photograph down, to hide it away where I wouldn't have to see these changes anymore. But every time I reached for it, my hands would shake so badly I couldn't grip the frame. It was as if the photograph itself resisted being moved, had somehow anchored itself to that spot on the wall through sheer will. The changes accelerated. My father's form began to fade, becoming translucent, while the mysterious figure gained substance. My child self's expression transformed from joy to fear, though I remained frozen in that eternal moment, atop fading shoulders. My mother's smile took on a knowing quality, her eyes fixed on some point beyond the camera's view. I found myself spending hours staring at the photograph, trying to remember my father's real face. But the more I tried, the more his features slipped away from my memory, replaced by that persistent blur. The figure in the background seemed to watch me during these sessions, its presence growing stronger as my father's grew weaker. Last night, I made a discovery that has left me questioning everything. While reviewing my earliest documentation of the photograph, I noticed something in the corner of the frame I hadn't seen before. There, partially hidden by the natural aging of the photo paper, was a date. But it wasn't just any date, it was impossible. The photograph was dated several years before I was born. I sit here now, writing this account, while the photograph continues its slow transformation on my wall. The figure has moved again. It now stands where my father once stood, its form becoming clearer with each passing moment. My child self remains balanced on its shoulders, face frozen in an expression I no longer recognize. My mother's smile has transformed into something that could be either acceptance or grief. And the most terrifying part, when I look in the mirror now, my own face has started to blur. This morning I found a new photograph hanging in my hallway. It shows a family standing in front of a house, a mother, a child, and a figure whose features I can almost make out. The child is smiling, balanced on the figure's shoulders. There's a blurred shape in the background, watching. The photo is dated today. Story 7. The abandoned railway behind my neighborhood was nothing more than an overgrown path, the tracks buried under decades of dirt and weeds. But today, as I walked past, I stopped in my tracks. A tunnel yawned open where the tracks had once ended, its entrance dark and damp, as if it had been waiting for something to pass through. The cool air carried the scent of wet stone and decay, and somewhere inside the sound of dripping water echoed, slow and deliberate. I stood there, frozen, my phone's camera raised to document what I was seeing. The screen showed exactly what my eyes refused to process. A perfectly carved tunnel entrance, its weathered stone arch rising at least 20 feet high. The vegetation around it seemed undisturbed, as if the tunnel had quietly materialized without disturbing a single blade of grass. My rational mind tried to make sense of it. Perhaps I had simply never noticed it before, though I had walked this path countless times since moving to the neighborhood. I approached closer, my feet crunching on loose gravel that hadn't been there yesterday. The air grew colder with each step, and a faint metallic taste coated my tongue. I switched on my phone's flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness but somehow failing to illuminate the tunnel's depths properly. The light seemed to bend and diffuse, creating strange shadows that moved against the natural flow of the beam. I took a video, narrating in whispers what I was seeing, though my voice sounded hollow and distant in the recording. The walls weren't smooth like modern tunnels. They were rough-hewn, with odd angular patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Water trickled down in places, but when I touched the wall, it was completely dry. The stone felt wrong under my fingers, almost like it was vibrating at a frequency just below perception. I posted the video online, seeking validation that others could see what I was seeing. The responses were mixed. Some saw exactly what I described, while others insisted the video showed nothing but an overgrown railway cut. I returned the next day with a proper camera and measuring tape, determined to document everything systematically. The tunnel had changed, not dramatically, but unmistakably. The entrance was wider, the arch higher, and the internal patterns on the walls had shifted into new configurations. I began taking daily photographs, measuring the entrance dimensions, and recording the sounds that emanated from within. Each day brought subtle changes. The tunnel was growing, transforming, like a living thing slowly waking up. My dreams became filled with the sound of distant trains, though no tracks remained visible inside the tunnel. In these dreams, I would walk deeper and deeper, following the sound, but never reaching its source. I would wake up with dirt on my sheets and stone dust under my fingernails, though I knew I hadn't left my bed. I started leaving markers at the tunnel entrance, small cairns of stones, strings tied to nearby trees, anything to prove to myself that the physical space remained constant. But each morning, the markers would be gone, with no sign they had ever existed. The tunnel seemed to reject any attempt to quantify or constrain it. The changes accelerated. The walls began to display what looked like ancient carvings, symbols and pictographs that appeared to have been there for centuries, yet I knew had materialized overnight. I tried to sketch them, but my drawings never matched when I compared them to the photographs. The symbols seemed to rearrange themselves when I wasn't looking directly at them. My obsession grew. I set up a makeshift research station near the entrance, documenting every change, every anomaly. The air around the tunnel began to feel charged, like the atmosphere before a storm. Electronic devices started malfunctioning in strange ways. Batteries would drain instantly, recordings would contain inexplicable sounds, and photos would show impossible geometries. Other people began to notice. Dog walkers would avoid the area, their pets whining and pulling away. Birds no longer flew near the entrance. The vegetation around the tunnel started to change. Plants grew in impossible patterns, their leaves turning to face the darkness within, as if drawn by some unseen force. One morning, I found footprints leading into the tunnel. Not my own, but those of bare feet, perfectly preserved in the dust. They started abruptly in the middle of the entrance and led straight into the darkness. I followed them with my camera, walking deeper than I had ever dared before. The air grew thick and syrupy, making each step feel like wading through invisible water. The tunnel no longer felt like a simple passage through earth and stone. It had become something else, a threshold perhaps, or a membrane between realities. The walls pulsed with a subtle rhythm that matched my heartbeat, and whispers echoed from depths that should have been physically impossible given the tunnel's location. My research notes became increasingly erratic. I found entries in my own handwriting that I had no memory of writing, describing events and observations that couldn't have happened. Pages would be filled with the same symbols I had seen on the walls, drawn with mechanical precision that I knew I wasn't capable of. The tunnel began appearing in reflections, in windows, in puddles, in the screen of my phone when it was turned off. Each reflection showed it slightly differently, as if I was seeing it from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Sometimes in these reflections I could see something moving in the darkness, something that seemed to be watching back. My sleep patterns dissolved completely. I would find myself standing at the tunnel entrance with no memory of how I got there, my camera filled with photos taken during these blackouts. The images showed impossible things, geometries that hurt to look at, lights that seemed to bend around corners that couldn't exist, and sometimes just barely visible in the background, a figure that looked unsettlingly like myself, but wrong in subtle ways I couldn't quite identify. The locals started sharing stories of missing pets, of strange sounds in the night, of children who spoke of a singing darkness that called to them from behind their houses. The tunnel had become a presence in the collective consciousness of the neighborhood, though everyone experienced it differently. Some saw it as a mere shadow, others as a gaping wound in reality itself. I knew I should stop my investigation, should walk away before I became too entangled in whatever was happening. But the tunnel had become a part of me now. I could feel it in my dreams, in my thoughts, in the way my skin tingled when I faced certain directions. It was changing me, just as it changed itself. The breaking point came when I found my own footprints leading out of the tunnel one morning. Footprints I had no memory of making, accompanied by a trail of water that evaporated too quickly in the morning sun. In my pocket was a smooth stone covered in those same shifting symbols, and when I held it, I could hear the whispers clearly for the first time. They weren't speaking any language I knew, but I understood them perfectly. They spoke of spaces between spaces, of time flowing like water through cracks in reality, of a hunger that could never be satisfied. And they spoke of me, of how I had been chosen, marked, changed. I still walk past the tunnel every day, but I no longer take photos or measurements. The changes continue, but they've become subtle, personal, meant for my eyes alone. Sometimes when the light hits it just right, I can see through the darkness to something beyond, a vast network of tunnels, each leading to its own impossible space, each waiting for its own observer to be chosen. The tunnel that wasn't there before is there now, and it's more than just a physical space. It's a reminder that reality is more permeable than we imagine, that the solid ground beneath our feet might shift at any moment, revealing depths we never knew existed. And sometimes late at night, I swear I can hear the sound of phantom trains carrying unknown cargo through dimensions that exist just beyond the edge of our understanding. I've stopped trying to convince others of what I've seen. The tunnel exists differently for each person who encounters it, and my experience is just one thread in a tapestry of impossible observations. But I know that it's changing, growing, spreading its influence in ways I can't fully comprehend. And somehow, I've become part of that change, a willing or unwilling participant in whatever transformation is taking place. The markers I leave now aren't for documentation or proof. They're messages to myself, breadcrumbs leading back to a reality I'm not sure I fully inhabit anymore. Each morning they're gone, absorbed into the growing mystery of the tunnel, and each morning I feel a little more distant from the person I used to be. The tunnel that wasn't there before is there now, and it's waiting. For what, I'm not entirely sure. But I know with a certainty that transcends rational thought that when the time comes, I'll walk into that darkness one final time, and the footprints I leave behind will tell a story that no one else will ever fully understand. Story 8. The mirror above my bathroom sink was old, slightly warped at the edges, but familiar. I turned away, reaching for my towel, when I caught something in my peripheral vision. Movement. My reflection hadn't moved with me. My breath hitched as I turned back, locking eyes with my own face. Except it wasn't quite mine. the lips curled slightly, the eyes glimmering with something unfamiliar. And then it blinked, twice, but I hadn't. I stepped back, my heel catching on the bathroom rug. The floor felt unusually cold through my socks. My reflection remained still, maintaining that subtle smile that didn't belong on my face. A faint humming sound filled the room, barely perceptible but persistent, like distant power lines in summer heat. That night, I covered the mirror with a sheet. I told myself I was being irrational, that stress and fatigue were playing tricks on my mind. But as I lay in bed, a new sound caught my attention. A soft scratching coming from the bathroom wall. Not the familiar settling of pipes or the scurrying of mice, but something deliberate, rhythmic, like fingernails drawing patterns. I began documenting everything in a notebook. The scratching continued each night, growing louder, more insistent. The bathroom developed a peculiar scent, sweet and metallic, like copper pennies left in rain. My phone's voice recorder picked up whispers beneath the scratching, but when I played the recordings back, the whispers seemed to say different things each time. The changes spread beyond the bathroom. Reflective surfaces throughout my house began to behave strangely. The television screen, when turned off, showed ripples like disturbed water. The stainless steel kettle distorted my features in new ways, stretching, compressing, rearranging. I started avoiding them all, covering windows at night, turning pictures face down. But I couldn't avoid my own curiosity. I set up a camera facing the bathroom mirror, recording while I slept. The footage showed nothing at first, just the sheet covering the mirror gently swaying in non-existent drafts. Until the third night. The sheet rippled, not from the front, but from behind, as if something pressed against it from within the mirror itself. I watched as shapes formed, the suggestion of hands, fingers, a face, testing the barrier between their world and mine. I tried to document it all objectively. I measured the temperature drops that accompanied the scratching sounds. The digital thermometer showed impossible readings, dropping well below freezing despite the summer heat outside. I recorded the strange electrical interference that made light bulbs flicker in sequences that almost felt like code. My laptop's camera began capturing glimpses of movement behind me, but only in video calls, never in photographs. The mirror thing grew bolder. One morning, I found tiny handprints in the condensation on the bathroom mirror, visible only when I breathed on the glass. They were child-sized, but with too many fingers. The sweet copper smell grew stronger, and the whispers in my recordings became clearer, forming words in a voice that sounded like mine but spoke languages I didn't know. I reached out to others online, searching for similar experiences. I found message boards filled with stories about reflections acting strangely, but the threads always ended abruptly, the users never posting again. When I tried to share my own documentation, the files corrupted, turning into nonsense data or disappearing entirely. My posts were deleted within hours, not by moderators, but by something else. The turning point came when I realized I could no longer trust my phone's camera. The front-facing camera showed my reflection correctly, but the main camera revealed something else, a version of me that moved independently, its expressions always slightly wrong, its eyes focused on something I couldn't see. In video mode, it would sometimes turn to look directly into the lens, mouthing words I couldn't understand. I began to notice other changes in myself. My handwriting in the notebook grew increasingly erratic, sometimes shifting into patterns and symbols I didn't recognize. I would find myself standing in front of covered mirrors without remembering how I got there. The scratching sounds followed me even when I left the house, emanating from shop windows and car mirrors. One night, I woke to find my notebook filled with new entries, pages of text written in my hand, but in that unknown language. The last page contained a single sentence in English. "Let me show you what's behind the glass." The words were written backward, as if reflected. I knew I had to confront it. I returned to the bathroom and pulled down the sheet. The mirror's surface rippled like disturbed water, and my reflection stood there, but wrong, its shoulders too sharp, its smile too wide. As I watched, it raised its hand to the glass, pressing against it from the other side. The surface began to give, bulging outward like heated plastic. The air grew thick with that sweet copper smell, and the humming sound rose to a pitch that made my teeth ache. My reflection's face distorted, features sliding like oil on water, reconstructing themselves into something that wore my skin like an ill-fitting mask. Its hand pushed through the glass, reaching for me with fingers that bent in too many directions. I stumbled backward, but the doorknob had vanished, leaving only smooth wood where it should have been. The thing in the mirror emerged further, glass flowing around it like mercury. In desperation, I raised my phone to record what was happening, but the screen showed only static. Through the static, I caught glimpses of other rooms, other mirrors, other versions of myself watching with those wrong eyes. That's when I noticed my own hands had begun to look strange, the fingers too long, the skin too smooth. When I pressed them against the wall, they left faint impressions, as if the solid surface had become slightly soft. The boundary between reflection and reality was dissolving, and I could no longer tell which side of the mirror I was on. I still live in my house, still write in my notebook, still avoid mirrors when I can. But sometimes, catching glimpses of my reflection in windows or puddles, I notice my smile is slightly wrong, my movement's a fraction of a second too slow, and in my recordings, beneath the whispers and scratching, I hear my own voice asking questions I never spoke, in a language I'm starting to understand. The mirror above my bathroom sink remains uncovered now. Sometimes late at night, I stand before it and watch as my reflection reaches out, fingers pressing against the glass. And sometimes, when the humming grows loud enough to drown out my thoughts, I reach back. Story 9. The motel was nearly empty when I checked in, its neon sign buzzing in the humid night air. The hallway smelled of stale carpet and something faintly metallic. Room 209 was mine, but as I passed room 210, I noticed something strange. The door handle was wrapped in thick chains, rusted and bolted into the wall. The peeling "Do Not Disturb" sign hung lopsided, the words barely legible. Just as I took a step closer, something inside knocked, slow and heavy, 3 times. I froze, my own door key dangling from my fingers. The sound wasn't the sharp rap of knuckles against wood, but rather something solid and dense, like a piece of furniture being dragged across the floor. My rational mind suggested maintenance work, yet the chains suggested otherwise. The metallic smell grew stronger. Inside my room, I tried to settle in, unpacking my small overnight bag and checking my phone. No signal. The wall-mounted TV hummed with static when I pressed the power button. Even the bedside radio produced nothing but white noise, the frequency numbers flickering between stations without my touching the dial. The knock came again, this time from the wall separating my room from 210. The same 3 beats, slow and deliberate. I pressed my ear against the wallpaper, which felt unnaturally warm beneath my skin. The pattern, geometric shapes and faded browns and greens, seemed to shift slightly under my gaze, like oil spreading across water. I pulled out my phone and started recording. The static from the TV had changed pitch, becoming deeper, almost musical. Through my phone's screen, I noticed the shadows in the corners of the room appeared darker, more defined than they should be. They didn't match the direction of the light from the windows. My curiosity overcame my unease. I stepped into the hallway, phone still recording, and approached room 210. The chains clinked softly as I ran my fingers along their length. They were ancient, covered in a patina that left rusty residue on my skin. The door itself felt wrong. The wood grain seemed to flow in impossible directions, and touching it sent pins and needles through my fingertips. Something scraped against the floor inside, followed by a sound like breathing, but distorted. as if played through damaged speakers. I held my phone closer to the door, and the recording stopped automatically. The screen showed only a single frame, a black rectangle with what looked like fingerprints pressed against it from the other side. Back in my room, I tried washing the rust from my hands, but the water ran clear while the stains remained. The bathroom mirror reflected my face at a slight delay, as if the silver backing was struggling to keep up with my movements. Behind me, the shower curtain billowed without any breeze. I began documenting everything in the Notes app on my phone. The temperature in my room dropped steadily, though the air conditioning was off. The TV continued its staticky drone, but now I could almost make out words in the white noise. My phone's recording picked up fragments, stay, and inside and watching. The knocking started again, but this time in a different pattern. 4 beats, then 2, then 3. I copied it down, trying to find a meaning. The numbers seemed significant, but every time I thought I grasped the pattern, it shifted, like trying to remember a dream while waking. My attempts to call the front desk went unanswered. The phone line produced the same white noise as the TV and radio, punctuated by those almost words. I searched online for information about room 210, but my internet connection had died. The last page I managed to load showed a news article about missing persons, but the text was corrupted, showing only strings of numbers and symbols. The wall between the rooms had begun to feel like a membrane rather than solid plaster and wood. It pulsed slightly when I touched it, and the warmth had increased. The geometric patterns in the wallpaper had definitely changed. I took photos to prove it to myself. Each picture showed a slightly different arrangement, the shapes gradually forming into something that almost looked like letters. I pressed my ear against the wall again and heard what sounded like my own voice, speaking words I couldn't quite make out. The recording app picked up more. Let me see, and through the wall, and becoming. Each playback was different, the words rearranging themselves into new meanings. The room's dimensions seemed wrong now. The far wall appeared further away than it had when I checked in, while the ceiling had lowered enough that I could touch it without stretching. The shadows in the corners had grown more substantial, taking on shapes that suggested furniture, or perhaps crouching figures. I tried to leave twice. The first time, my door wouldn't open, though I could hear the mechanism working when I turned the key. The second time, the hallway outside looked wrong, stretched and twisted, the carpet pattern flowing like river currents. I stepped back inside quickly, my heart pounding. The knocking changed again, becoming a continuous rhythm that matched my heartbeat perfectly. The wall was fully warm now, almost hot to the touch, and I could see it moving with each pulse. The wallpaper pattern had resolved itself into clear symbols, but looking at them directly gave me a headache and made my vision blur. My phone's camera showed something else entirely. The wall was transparent through the lens, revealing a room that couldn't possibly exist. The space beyond seemed to extend forever, filled with shifting geometric shapes that folded in on themselves like living origami. In the center, something moved with purpose. The TV screen crackled and went black, but its reflection in the window showed clear images, my own face, but with expressions I wasn't making. My reflection watched me with growing interest, its movements increasingly out of sync with my own. When I turned away, I could still feel its gaze on the back of my neck. The rust stains on my hands had spread, tracing patterns up my arms that matched the symbols on the wall. My skin felt different, thinner somehow, more sensitive to the air currents in the room. I could feel the presence in room 210 more clearly now, its attention focused on me like a physical weight. The knocking stopped suddenly, replaced by a deep vibration that made my teeth ache. Through my phone's camera, I watched as the thing in the other room pressed against the boundary between spaces. The geometric patterns on the wall began to peel away, revealing something underneath that hurt to look at directly. My last recording captured the sound of reality tearing, a high, thin sound like crystal breaking in slow motion. The wall between rooms had become permeable, less a solid barrier than a suggestion of separation. Through my phone's screen, I watched my reflection step through its own wall and beckon to me with my own hands. I don't remember crossing between the rooms. My body moved without my input, drawn forward by a force that felt like gravity and magnetism combined. The boundary between spaces felt like static electricity against my skin, then like ice water, then like nothing at all. Now I'm on the other side, documenting these events through the phone I brought with me. The space here follows different rules. Distance and direction are suggestions rather than laws. Time moves strangely, flowing in multiple directions at once. I can see my old room through the wall, but it looks wrong from this angle, as if viewed through a lens that bends reality. Someone new has checked into room 209. Through the permeable barrier, I watch them notice the chains on my door, watch them lean closer to investigate. I raise my hand to knock 3 times, slow and heavy, hoping they'll understand what I'm trying to tell them. The symbols on my skin pulse in time with the rhythm, and I wait to see if they'll answer. I know now why the door was chained. Not to keep something in, but to mark the boundary where our reality grows thin. Each visitor who crosses over adds another layer to this space, another set of rules to the geometry of this folded dimension. We are all here, watching through the walls, knocking to get your attention. If you're reading this and you hear knocking from the other side of your wall, look carefully at the patterns around you. Notice how the shadows don't match the light, how reflections move independently, how the air feels thick with possibility. We're waiting to show you what we've found. All you have to do is answer. Story 10. On a dimming evening, amidst the labyrinthine cityscape, a peculiar rhyme caught my eye, etched onto a weathered brick wall. The verses, though faded, carried a haunting melody that seemed to echo through the cool air, mingled with the scent of rain-soaked concrete. It felt as if the very city itself was whispering an ancient secret, reserved only for those willing to truly listen. Approaching the wall, I traced my fingers along the worn brick, feeling the words pulsate beneath my touch. The ink, neither fresh nor completely faded, existed in a mysterious state between presence and memory. A gentle breeze swept through the narrow street, carrying with it the soft rustling of fallen leaves and distant echoes of life. It was then that I noticed the peculiar detail. Each line of the rhyme appeared to be penned in slightly different handwriting, as if a chorus of voices had contributed to its creation over time. Some letters flowed with elegant cursive grace, while others stood rigid and precise. Yet, the varying styles intertwined in an unsettling harmony that mesmerized me. As the street lamps flickered to life, casting warm glows and gentle shadows that danced across the wall, I reached for my phone to illuminate the text. But to my surprise, the words seemed to shift under the artificial light, rearranging themselves when viewed through my screen. I blinked, unsure if my eyes were deceiving me. In the deepening darkness, I began to commit the verses to memory. Each line settled effortlessly in my mind, as though they had always resided there, waiting to be remembered rather than learned. The rhyme spoke of shadows walking beside us, memories lingering in the gaps between moments, and a melody only the walls could hear. Night after night, I found myself drawn back to that enigmatic wall. Whether in dreams or waking hours, the words would surface in my thoughts, beckoning me. I observed other passers-by, their fingers gliding along the bricks just as mine had done. Some paused, their expressions distant, as if attuned to a melody just beyond my grasp. Weeks passed, and I began to notice similar verses appearing on other walls throughout the city, each seamlessly connected like verses in an infinite poem. The handwriting styles remained consistent, a blend of authors spreading their cryptic message across the urban landscape. I documented each new discovery, though the images always came out slightly blurred, as if refusing to be captured by mere technology. The more I immersed myself in this mystery, the more I noticed subtle shifts in my perception. Street sounds morphed into rhythmic melodies, the hum of traffic transforming into distant harmonies. Even the rain seemed to fall in measured beats, tapping out messages in an ancient language that teased my understanding. On quiet nights, I would stand before the original wall where the rhyme first captivated me. The words neither faded nor grew clearer. They lingered in that liminal space between reality and imagination. Occasionally others would join me, strangers drawn by the same inexplicable allure. We stood in silence, sharing a mutual curiosity that bound us together. The rhyme spoke of a time when cities pulsated with life, when walls held memories and streets sang with the echoes of countless souls. It hinted at a hidden realm existing alongside our own, visible only to those who paused to listen. Some nights, I swore I heard a soft hum emanating from the very bricks, a lullaby woven from urban echoes and forgotten dreams. Through changing seasons, the words seemed to adapt to their surroundings. In summer's heat, they shimmered like mirages on the horizon. Autumn rains lent them a fluid quality, as if the ink could flow down the wall at any moment. Winter frost created delicate patterns around each letter, capturing the faint sunlight. To this day, I visit the wall regularly, having memorized every word of the rhyme long ago. Occasionally, I notice new lines emerging between the old, the family of handwriting styles expanding continuously. Though I've never witnessed anyone writing on the wall, the poem evolves, a living testament of shared consciousness. What captivates me most is how the rhyme affects each person uniquely. Some depart with tranquil smiles, while others carry a pensive look that lingers for days. Many, like myself, return repeatedly, drawn by an unspoken agreement that there's always more to uncover within those weathered words. The mystery of the rhyme remains unsolved, and perhaps that's how it should be. In a world where technology and science unravel countless secrets, there's solace in knowing that some enigmas endure in the spaces between streetlights, in the whispers of brick and mortar, in the persistent words that defy complete comprehension. As night descends and the city settles into its nocturnal rhythm, I often ponder about the unknown authors whose handwriting intertwines on the wall. Do they still wander, adding to their endless poem? Do they too visit these walls, seeking the hidden melody? Perhaps we have crossed paths, connected by unseen threads of shared awareness, all part of a tale that continues to inscribe itself in the margins of our urban existence. Story 11. In a forgotten gallery of ancestral treasures, I stumbled upon an out-of-place portrait, a ghostly figure with eyes brimming with untold sorrows. Behind the frame, a fragile letter waited, exuding the faint scent of aged parchment and lavender, beckoning me to unravel its secrets. The gallery exuded a timeless aura, with dust particles pirouetting in the soft afternoon light that filtered through tall windows, casting a spellbinding dance against weathered wooden walls. Each step I took resonated with whispers of the past, the ancient floorboards recounting stories of those who had tread upon them long ago. With trembling hands, I retrieved the letter, the paper whispering secrets of yesteryears as my fingers traced its delicate script. The enigmatic woman in the portrait, her gaze filled with a blend of melancholy and resolve, seemed to peer into my soul, prompting me to ponder the narrative of her existence. The script on the letter, though faded to sepia by time's gentle touch, flowed gracefully, transporting me to a bygone era as I delved into its contents. "My dearest Elizabeth," it began, setting the stage for a tale of departure and discovery across distant seas. The author, Margaret, spoke of recurring dreams entwined with family lore, the elusive music box, the key that held secrets, and the enigmatic manner by the misty shore. The haunting melody hummed by their grandmother echoed through the letter, weaving a thread of mystery that bound generations together. Margaret hinted at a hidden map within the portrait, a cryptic guide to uncovering their legacy, urging caution to those who dared to trespass on the realm of secrets. But for Elizabeth, the call to unravel the family's heritage resonated through Margaret's words, urging her to trust intuition over sight, to seek answers in the whispers of nature and dreams. As I reached the letter's conclusion, a sense of profound connection lingered, casting a spell of contemplation over me, akin to the tranquil aftermath of a sunset's glow. Returning to the portrait, Margaret's visage now held layers of depth, her secrets intertwined with the gallery's silent tales. The encroaching twilight bathed the room in shadows, illuminating hidden nuances in the painting, a pendant that might conceal a key, a subtle hint of the music box's presence, a gesture guarding a clandestine truth. Enveloped by the gallery's serene ambience, I pondered the enigma laid before me, torn between unraveling the map's mystery and letting it slumber in obscurity. With reverence, I restored the letter to its sanctuary, preserving its essence in my journal before departing. A distant melody, faint yet resonant, lingered in the air, a haunting refrain that wavered between reality and reverie, echoing through the gallery's hushed corridors. The portrait's gaze trailed me as I departed, not as a specter of unease, but as a harbinger of stories waiting to be unveiled, a riddle yearning to be solved. The gallery's tranquility cradled my thoughts like a soothing melody, whispering of journeys yet to unfold beneath the veil of dreams. And as I left, I knew that this enigmatic tapestry would draw me back, beckoning me to traverse its labyrinth of secrets when the time was ripe, for some truths blossom best in the realm of slumber. Story 12. High above the bustling city, a secret rooftop garden revealed itself to me, nestled atop a forgotten building. Hidden lanterns bathed vibrant plants and blooming flowers in a soft, otherworldly glow, casting a spell of tranquility upon the urban chaos below. It was on a crisp autumn evening, as the sky turned to velvet and the scent of falling leaves wafted through the air, that the garden's ethereal light beckoned to me from my apartment window. A gentle pulse, like the rhythm of a peaceful breath, lured me into its mysterious radiance night after night. After weeks of enchanted observation, I stumbled upon a hidden stairwell leading to the rooftop sanctuary. The metal door opened with a whisper, unveiling a realm suspended between reality and dreams. As I traversed the weathered wooden planks of the garden path, mist curled at my feet, and the scent of rain-soaked cedar filled the air with a nostalgic embrace. The garden itself defied logic. Unseen flowers swayed in an unfelt breeze, emitting a delicate phosphorescence that painted the atmosphere in pastel hues. Ancient lanterns dangled from iron posts, illuminating the space with a light akin to starlight captured in morning dew. Each step deeper into this enchanted realm revealed peculiarities. Plants that seemed to acknowledge my presence, flowers that shifted and transformed before my eyes, and a pond reflecting lights that danced without a clear source. Time in the garden unfolded oddly, stretching and contracting in a dance of its own making. I found solace in the mysterious ambience, often losing myself in contemplation without needing the company of books or journals. One evening, a weathered stone bench adorned with shifting symbols caught my attention, whispering stories just beyond my grasp. The garden's enchantment extended to its music, a ghostly melody that echoed from unseen sources, soothing yet ineffable. Among my visits, I stumbled upon forgotten trinkets left by unknown visitors, hinting at a shared secret known only to a select few. The garden's transformations with each passing season defied nature's laws, blooming in defiance of the calendar and dancing with elements of whimsy. Despite the garden's enigmatic nature, it became my sanctuary, a realm where reality blurred with dreams, time flowed like honey, and the world below felt distant and insignificant. Amidst the luminescent blooms, I glimpsed reflections of other hidden gardens, each a sanctuary between the known and the unknown. I've embraced the garden's mysteries, understanding that some questions are better left unanswered, existing as gentle wonders rather than challenges to be solved. The pulsing glow against the night sky continues to beckon, a heartbeat calling out to kindred spirits in search of solace. In this celestial oasis high above the city, I've learned that true peace comes not from unraveling mysteries, but from embracing the questions and finding contentment in the unknown. Story 13. In the hushed embrace of midnight, as I rested in bed, a stray echo reached my ears, a voice that carried a hint of both familiarity and aching distance. The soft hum of the air conditioner and the gentle rustle of leaves outside intertwined, creating a spectral melody that stirred memories of a presence I believed to be long vanished. That night, my bedroom exuded an unfamiliar aura. Moonlight seeped through the curtains, casting silver patterns on the walls, shapes that seemed to pulsate with a subtle rhythm. The air itself held a weighty stillness, reminiscent of the moments preceding a rainfall, where everything holds its breath in anticipation. Shadows lingered in the corners, deeper and more mysterious than usual, as if they were gathering to share whispered secrets among themselves. Once more the voice drifted towards me, a delicate melody on the edge of perception. It evoked the gentle tinkle of wind chimes swaying in a breeze, a melancholy yet soothing cadence. Slowly I sat up, the blanket slipping off with a whisper of fabric against fabric. The cool, solid touch of the wooden floor beneath my feet grounded me in reality, even as my thoughts wandered into the realm of the inexplicable. Navigating through my home at night had always been a familiar dance, guided by muscle memory and cautious steps. But on this night, each room exuded an aura of the unknown. The hallway stretched out before me, its walls seeming to absorb the dim light rather than reflect it. Family photos observed my passage with distant gazes, their familiar faces appearing more distant than ever. The voice beckoned me towards my study, where rows of books lined the walls, their spines forming a tapestry of muted colors in the darkness. My favorite reading chair sat empty, yet a sense of expectancy hung in the air, as if it had just been vacated. The leather still radiated warmth, and beside it, my grandmother's antique table lamp cast a soft amber glow that pulsed ever so faintly with each ethereal whisper. A peculiar sight caught my eye among my collection of vinyl records. One album stood slightly apart from the others, its sleeves showing signs of frequent handling. I couldn't recall the last time I had touched it, yet there it sat, like a patient messenger awaiting my attention. The dust cover of the record player was open, though I distinctly remembered closing it the night before. Almost of its own volition, my hands reached for the record. The vinyl caught the lamp's light, creating mesmerizing circles of reflection spiraling towards the center, beckoning me. As the needle found its groove on the turntable, music began to play. Not the expected symphony, but the soothing sound of rain on a tin roof, mingling with distant piano notes that seemed to emerge from the depths of memory itself. The voice intertwined with these sounds, becoming clearer now, relaying words that felt like fragmented whispers from a dream. It spoke of summer evenings spent on a porch swing, of promises exchanged beneath starlit skies, and of time slipping away like sand through gentle fingers. My grandmother's antique clock ticked steadily in the corner, each swing of its pendulum seeming to stretch into eternity. The voice wove tales of her, conjuring memories of evenings spent listening to her stories, the same lamp casting its warm glow over us both. Had she known about this voice, had she left me a message that I was only just beginning to unravel? Subtly, the room's temperature shifted, creating gentle currents of air that caused the lamp's light to dance. Shadows took on varying shades of darkness, revealing intricate patterns that reminded me of the lace doilies my grandmother used to create, designs that seemed to hold hidden meanings. I found myself sinking into my reading chair, its familiar embrace cradling me as the voice continued its ethereal soliloquy. The words began to match the rhythm of the clock's pendulum, weaving a hypnotic tapestry of memory and enigma. My fingers traced patterns on the worn armrests of the chair, following grooves etched by years of similar gestures. The bookshelves seemed to breathe in sync with the voice, their contents subtly shifting. One book captured my attention, a volume of poetry gifted by my grandmother long ago. Its spine glowed softly in the lamplight, and I realized the voice was reciting verses I had read to her during her final days. Time seemed to flow like thick honey in winter, rich with significance, yet resistant to quantification. With each passing moment, the voice grew clearer, though its message remained just beyond complete grasp. It spoke of connections that transcended time, of a love echoing through generations, of memories residing in the spaces between heartbeats. As dawn approached, its pale fingers reaching through the window, the voice began to fade. The record continued its silent rotation, the needle tracing an endless path. The lamp's light flickered one last time, and in that fleeting moment, I grasped something profound about the essence of memory and loss, about how certain voices never truly depart. They simply await the opportune moment to whisper their truths. When morning bathed the room in light, I found myself still nestled in the reading chair, the record player silent, the lamp extinguished. There was no tangible evidence of my nocturnal journey, save for a single book of poetry resting open on the side table, its pages adorned with my grandmother's delicate annotations. The blurred line between dream and reality seemed insignificant compared to the lingering emotion, a sense of connection to something vast and mysterious, yet intimately known. Though the voice had faded with the night, its echo lingered, a gentle nudge that some mysteries are meant to be felt rather than unraveled, experienced rather than explained. In the tranquil moments that ensued, I discovered solace in the uncertainty, in the space between comprehension and wonder, where the most exquisite mysteries found their dwelling place. Story 14. In the forgotten corners of my home, where dust motes danced in the soft light filtering through lace curtains, I stumbled upon a locked drawer hidden within an ancient desk. With a gentle coaxing, the drawer yielded to my persistence, revealing a fragile note folded neatly within. The paper, weathered and yellowed with age, bore the elegant script of a bygone era, hinting at secrets long kept within the walls of my home. As I unfurled the delicate parchment, a whisper of times past brushed against my skin, carrying with it the faint scent of cedar and ink, like a silent beckoning to unravel the mysteries it held. The room grew heavy with anticipation, yet a soothing calm settled over me, akin to the tranquil moments before a summer rain. The note bore a date from a distant past and began with the words, "My dearest friend," drawing me into a narrative of peculiar occurrences that had unfolded within these very walls. Tales of phantom footsteps echoing through empty corridors, objects moving of their own accord, and the enigmatic appearance of fresh blooms in a vase under the full moon captivated my senses. With each sentence, I sank deeper into the worn chair, captivated by the storyteller's account of a hidden chamber concealed within the house, harboring not treasures of gold or jewels, but a collection of memories frozen in time. The steady tick-tock of the grandfather clock provided a rhythmic backdrop as I delved further into the writer's revelations. Within the hidden room, the author had unearthed an ancient journal chronicling the lives of past inhabitants, detailing dreams shared across generations and conversations that transcended the boundaries of time. Illuminated by the soft glow of an antique lamp, I traced the writer's words as they unveiled a series of cryptic symbols etched discreetly throughout the house, forming a map to the concealed chamber. The wind whispered through the trees outside, casting dancing shadows upon the walls, as the writer's musings painted a portrait of the house as a living repository of memories, a gentle guardian of tales untold. The note hinted at a deeper connection between the symbols, the phases of the moon, and the essence of time itself, weaving a tapestry of intrigue and mystique. As the narrative unfolded, the author spoke of dreams that blurred the line between reality and memory, featuring a mysterious woman in a blue dress who held the key to unlocking the secrets veiled within the house's walls. Each word carried a weight of significance, leading me down a path of enigma and wonder. The note culminated in a cryptic message, hinting at a threshold to be crossed when the midnight hour struck 13 times and moonlight bathed the seventh step in its ethereal glow. With bated breath, I absorbed the final words, feeling the pulse of time around me, a symphony of whispers and shadows enveloping my senses. As I carefully folded the note once more, a faint sketch caught my eye, a familiar geometric pattern etched in the corner, its meaning just beyond reach. The room had shifted, draped in shadows that whispered of untold stories and forgotten whispers, a tapestry of mysteries waiting to be unveiled. Placing the note back in the drawer, I left it unlocked, sensing that this was merely the prelude to a grander enigma, a journey of discovery that would unfold gradually, like the unfurling petals of a flower at dawn. In the deepening darkness, I pondered the woman in the blue dress, her silent presence lingering in the quiet corners of my mind. The grandfather clock continued its measured cadence, a comforting lullaby in the night, as distant church bells tolled in the distance. Absorbed in contemplation, I counted the chimes, lost in the echoes of a tale that resonated with the very essence of the house itself. And as the final echo faded into silence, a soft rustle brushed against my senses, like the whisper of silk, the phantom touch of a blue dress passing through the hush of an empty room, carrying with it the promise of secrets waiting to be unveiled in the stillness of the night. Story 15. In a rare encounter with a dilapidated, desolate theater, I settled into a seat in the dimly lit auditorium. Silence draped over the space like a heavy cloak, broken only by a faint, almost ethereal laughter that seemed to float through the aisles. The laughter intertwined with the musty fragrance of velvet curtains and decaying props, whispering tales of past nights filled with applause and happiness, now reduced to spectral whispers. My purpose for being there was to seek inspiration for my writing, lured by whispers of the peculiar aura that surrounded the building. The aged wooden doors groaned open at my touch, beckoning me into a realm suspended between yesteryears and the present moment. Dust motes pirouetted in slender shafts of light filtering through lofty windows, crafting ephemeral patterns that danced and swirled like ghostly performers on an unseen stage. The crimson velvet seats, though faded with time, exuded a certain gracefulness. Tracing my fingers along their weathered fabric, I sensed a tapestry of narratives woven into their fibers, a myriad of evenings filled with entertainment, romance, and enchantment. The air carried a subtle sweetness beneath its musty exterior, reminiscent of bygone perfumes and makeup powders, akin to the lingering essence of performers long departed. As my vision acclimated to the dimness, I caught sight of subtle movements at the corner of my eye. The ponderous stage curtains occasionally stirred, despite the absence of any breeze. The gentle rustle of fabric was accompanied by soft footfalls, as if unseen dancers were crossing the stage, their steps syncing with the rhythm of a forgotten dance. In the quietude, more sounds emerged, the gentle creak of floorboards, as if invisible actors were taking their places, and the hushed rustle of pages turning, like an unseen prompter reviewing a script. These sounds did not instill fear, but rather offered solace, enveloping me in a quilt of memories. Time seemed to ebb and flow uniquely within those walls. Minutes stretched into hours as I sat immobile, absorbing the theater's serene symphony. The afternoon light gradually shifted, casting elongated shadows over the vacant seats. These shadows seemed to morph into shapes, silhouettes of an attentive audience, their outlines suggesting refined evening attire and meticulously styled hair. The earlier laughter I had heard returned, accompanied now by what sounded like muffled applause, distant yet intimate, akin to a recording played at the faintest volume. I closed my eyes, allowing the sounds to cascade over me. Upon reopening my eyes, I could have sworn I glimpsed the flutter of a dress vanishing behind a pillar, the fabric catching the light fleetingly before dissipating. As evening drew near, the theater seemed to pulse with life. The temperature fluctuated unexpectedly, warm patches followed by cool drafts, as if unseen figures passed by. The stage lights, dormant for decades, emitted a faint, luminescent glow, barely noticeable yet undeniably present. I felt drawn to the stage. Each creak of the wooden steps beneath my feet reverberated through the vacant expanse as I ascended, standing at the center stage, facing the array of empty seats that somehow did not feel empty. The air brimmed with anticipation, akin to an audience collectively holding its breath before the commencement of a performance. From that vantage point, I discerned details previously overlooked. Trinkets strewn about the wings, a tarnished hand mirror, a solitary glove, an ancient script with yellowed, curling pages, all arranged as if their owners had just momentarily stepped away. The mirror's tarnished surface occasionally captured reflections that defied logic, fleeting movements, splashes of color, vanishing before my focus could latch onto them. My voice, when finally uttered, emerged as a mere whisper. "Is anyone there?" The words lingered in the air, absorbed by the darkness beyond the stage. The response was not immediate, but rather a gradual assembly of subtle sounds. The rustle of fabric, distant murmurs, the soft patter of footsteps, interweaving like an orchestral composition crescendoing. In that moment I comprehended that the theater was not truly vacant. It teemed with echoes, not solely of sounds, but of instants, sentiments, and encounters. Every performance, every chuckle, every tear shed during a poignant scene had etched its imprint, fashioning strata of recollections that had somehow materialized in the hush. The laughter I had previously heard was not ominous or derisive. It was jubilant, appreciative, stemming from authentic amusement and pleasure. It was as though the theater itself had absorbed these joyful instants and occasionally allowed them to seep back into our realm, akin to notes from a self-playing music box. As dusk descended, I acknowledged it was time to depart. Traversing back through the aisles, I encountered a mild resistance, as if the theater yearned to detain me a while longer. The exit loomed farther than I remembered, the path leading through shadowy pools that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Upon reaching the door, I cast one final glance backward. In that fleeting moment, the entire theater materialized as it must have been in its prime, seats brimming with shadowy figures, stage lights radiating warmly, curtains quivering with expectancy. Yet in the blink of an eye, it vanished, leaving only the familiar void. Stepping outside, I realized that void was an erroneous term altogether. The theater overflowed, brimming with narratives, with reminiscences, with instants preserved in time. And occasionally, if one listens intently enough, they can discern these narratives unfurling afresh, an everlasting spectacle for an audience of one. The laughter that had resonated would linger with me, a prompt that some places are never genuinely forsaken. They merely bide their time, accumulating memories until someone arrives who knows how to discern the echoes of joy lingering in the shadows. Story 16. On a leisurely stroll through a historic neighborhood, I stumbled upon an ancient iron gate adorned with intricate engravings. Despite the eroding effect of time, the fine details and symbols seemed to narrate a story of love and loss. The rusty scent of the gate blended with the crisp breeze, and as I trailed my fingertips along the weathered metal, a narrative seemed to beckon, a tale etched into every curve and crevice. The evening air carried the soft murmur of autumn leaves, while gentle golden light filtered through the branches above. Standing before the gate, I observed how the lingering sunlight highlighted the deeper etchings, casting shadows that danced and shifted mysteriously. The metal felt cool to the touch, its surface textured by years of exposure to the elements. There was an allure to the patterns, more than mere decoration. They formed elegant script intertwined with motifs of vines and blooms that eluded my comprehension. As I traced the intricate lines with my finger, a subtle warmth spread through my hand, a sensation akin to touching sun-warmed stone. Beyond the gate, a path meandered into the gathering twilight. Majestic trees arched overhead, their branches swaying in the evening breeze. The air carried the fragrance of damp earth and fallen leaves mingled with a hint of old roses or lavender, though no blossoms were in sight. Each time I tried to step away, a new detail captured my gaze. A spiral in the design led to another, creating an endless loop that always circled back to a central motif, a heart-shaped emblem nearly faded by time. Within its worn contours, faint initials and a possible date hinted at a bygone love story. As night descended, the atmosphere shifted, and the engravings seemed to transform before my eyes. What once resembled vines now appeared as written words in an unfamiliar script. Lost in the hypnotic patterns, I swayed slightly, entranced by the gate's enigmatic allure. The soft tap of my umbrella against the metal, unnoticed until then, resounded with an ethereal quality, like a submerged bell tolling. In that moment, a response seemed to stir from the depths of the garden beyond, a whisper carried by the wind, or perhaps something more profound. The engravings began to reveal fragments of a narrative, a couple embracing here, a flourishing garden there, and later, the same garden in winter's stark embrace, branches reaching towards an unseen sky. These scenes flowed seamlessly, linked by sweeping lines that evoked time, memory, and yearning. Time itself seemed fluid in this realm. The street lamps flickered to life, casting a warm glow upon the gate's aged surface. Each beam of light unveiled hidden details, a concealed bird, a fallen leaf, contributing to the grand tapestry of the story slowly unraveling before me. The tale chronicled two lovers who once tended the garden beyond the gate. Though their names had faded with time, their legacy endured, immortalized in iron and rust. Together they had cultivated something beautiful, something that bloomed and evolved through the changing seasons. The engravings illustrated how their love endured trials, weathered winters, and transcended, becoming eternal. Standing amidst the passage of time, I comprehended that the gate was more than a mere threshold. It was a testament, a declaration of love cast in metal to withstand the ages. The weathered heart at its core symbolized not decay but resilience. Despite the fading details, the essence lingered, touching all who paused to observe, to ponder, to feel. A distant church bell tolled, harmonizing with the hushed whispers of the evening breeze. Glancing back at the gate for a final time, I knew I would return, aware that it would never reveal itself in the same light twice. As I turned to depart, my fingers grazed the heart-shaped emblem one last time. In that fleeting instant, a gentle warmth pulsed through the metal, akin to a heartbeat preserved in iron, enduring through the passage of time. The tale of the gate lingered as I journeyed homeward through the deepening twilight. I now understood that some narratives are not meant to be wholly deciphered. They are meant to be felt, resonating in the realm between comprehension and wonder, between observation and belief. The faded engravings had imparted their message, safeguarding their deeper enigmas within their iron sanctuary. Story 17. On a somber afternoon, amidst a stack of mundane mail, a solitary, unmarked envelope caught my eye. Its contents, a weathered sheet of paper adorned with handwritten words, stirred a sense of nostalgia that felt oddly misplaced. The faint aroma of aged ink and lavender wafted through the air, prompting me to question the very essence of my own history. Running my fingers along the delicate edges of the paper, softened by the passage of time, I couldn't ignore the gentle tap of rain against the window, a calming cadence that synchronized with the rhythm of my own heartbeat. Bathed in the warm glow of a reading lamp, the elegant script on the paper danced before me, casting an amber halo around the letter. "My dearest friend," the letter began, igniting a spark of recognition within me as it spoke of a summer retreat I had no memory of. Yet, as the words unfolded, I could almost feel the sun's caress on my skin and hear the soothing melody of waves in the distance. The crackling fireplace beside me offered a comforting ambiance as I delved deeper into the narrative. Each sentence seemed to unlock a trove of unfamiliar yet intimately resonant memories. The tang of sea air, the sensation of smooth floorboards beneath bare feet, the whisper of curtains in a gentle breeze. The letter painted vivid images of afternoon teas and eternal roses in a garden, and of a mysterious locked room on the upper floor, evoking sensations that felt both alien and strangely familiar. My cat's content purring in my lap grounded me in the present as I turned to the second page, immersing myself in a world that seemed as tangible as the chair I occupied. The steady, graceful handwriting wove tales of misty gardens, flickering candlelight shadows, and phantom piano melodies that reverberated through the walls. The creak of the wooden floors beneath me momentarily melded with the descriptions, as if the very essence of the summer house had seeped into my surroundings. The scent of lavender, once confined to the paper, now enveloped the room, carrying echoes of memories not my own. Or were they? The letter divulged shared secrets, unspoken bonds, and a locket said to hold a photograph of two enigmatic figures. Though my fingers found only bare skin where the locket should have rested, its phantom weight lingered, a ghostly reminder of a past I couldn't claim. Outside, the rain whispered cryptic messages that eluded my grasp. The narrative unfurled tales of rainy days in the library, where books' titles shifted in a dance of secrecy. The scent of leather-bound tomes teased my senses, triggering a sense of recollection that defied logic. As I approached the final page, the ink seemed to fade, blurring the line between words and memories. The letter revealed a pivotal choice made in tandem, a ritual under a moon that defied reality. Its closing words echoed a truth that resonated deep within me. Memories are more fluid than we dare to acknowledge. Our understanding of self is merely a narrative we choose to embrace. This missive may guide you to a different tale, or perhaps unveil the one you've chosen to bury. Signed with an enigmatic initial that eluded comprehension, the letter held a mystique that lingered even as I folded it with care. Gazing at my reflection in the window's glass, a fleeting illusion of familiarity crossed my vision. A face known yet unknown, a mirror image of my own. As the rain subsided and the lavender scent dissipated, I secured the letter in its envelope, aware that the memories it stirred, whether real or imagined, would forever alter my perception. Drifting into slumber in my cozy armchair, the distant symphony of waves and piano keys serenaded me, accompanied by the phantom weight of a locket that never graced my neck. Story 18. Along a rugged coastline, I found myself drawn to an abandoned lighthouse, a silent sentinel against the crashing waves. Its worn facade whispered tales of lost sailors and forgotten dreams, a melancholy presence in the salty air. The wind carried a sorrowful tune, a gentle lament that seemed to resonate from within the old structure. I parked my car, its headlights casting long shadows on the weathered path leading to the lighthouse. Each step I took on the gravel path echoed softly in the heavy evening air, thick with memories and moisture. Spirals of mist curled around the base of the tower, ghostly fingers reaching upwards in the fading light. The unlocked door creaked open with a mournful groan, revealing a world steeped in history and solitude. Inside, The scent of aged wood and sea salt mingled with a hint of something sweeter, a reminder of days long past. As I ascended the spiral staircase, the hollow echoes of my footsteps filled the air, mingling with the soft creak of worn wooden steps. Through salt-crusted windows, I glimpsed the twilight sky painted in deep hues, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. The keeper's quarters below the lantern room seemed frozen in time, dust motes dancing in the beam of my flashlight like celestial bodies in a miniature universe. An open logbook on a weathered desk bore entries from decades ago, while a rocking chair swayed gently by the window, defying the stillness of the room. Photographs adorned the walls, capturing the lighthouse at different moments, always with the same figure at the railing, a woman in a flowing dress, her gaze fixed on the sea, a timeless presence of yearning and anticipation. The whisper persisted as I climbed higher, a haunting memory carried on the wind. In the lantern room, the massive Fresnel lens refracted the remaining light into rainbow fragments, illuminating the space with a spectral glow. A hauntingly beautiful melody filled the room, notes of longing and patience intertwining in a sorrowful symphony. Tears welled in my eyes, touched by the profound sadness of the music that spoke of waiting, lost love, and unending devotion. As the temperature dropped, a presence enveloped me, the scent of lavender and sea spray lingering in the air. In the reflection of the lens, a woman in a pale dress appeared, her eyes fixed on the horizon. But when I turned, she was gone, leaving only the echoes of her song behind. Descending slowly, I felt a newfound reverence for the lighthouse and its eternal guardian. The photographs now revealed a clearer image of the woman, her expression a mix of hope and resignation, a testament to her unwavering duty. Sitting in my car, I gazed at the first stars twinkling above the lighthouse, the whisper of the wind a gentle presence by my side. The haunting melody no longer felt unsettling. It was a reminder of enduring love and duty that transcended time and death. Years later, on quiet nights, the melody lingers in the air, a tribute to the woman who stands in her lantern room, a beacon of light in the darkness. Some places are not haunted to frighten, but to remind us of the enduring power of love, duty, and memory, echoing through eternity like a whispered song. Story 19. In the cozy, welcoming atmosphere of my cherished coffee nook on a rainy morning, a neatly folded note awaited me on the table. The paper, pristine and adorned with elegant, unfamiliar script, carried a delicate scent of lavender intertwined with the aroma of coffee. As I deciphered its enigmatic message, a mysterious chill coursed through me. Not a mere accident, but a deliberate clue to a concealed truth within the ordinary. The message, though simple, held a puzzling allure. Seek the woman cloaked in pearl gray. She graces every Tuesday at precisely 9:17 a.m. She abstains from ordering, from conversing, yet she always leaves a trace. Intrigued, I felt compelled to return to the cafe each Tuesday, driven by an inexplicable fascination. The rhythmic patter of rain against the windows became my serene companion, crafting a tranquil melody to accompany my silent vigil. The comforting blend of freshly ground coffee and the warmth of pastries enveloped me like a snug cocoon as I patiently awaited her arrival. On the initial Tuesday, I arrived ahead of time, selecting a secluded corner table, offering a clear view of both entrances. The ebb and flow of the morning crowd, their subdued chatter, and the gentle clinks of ceramic cups formed a tranquil symphony. My focus oscillated between the steady tick-tock of the antique clock on the wall and the entrance of each new patron. At precisely 9:17, she materialized. The pearl gray coat draped elegantly over her figure, its fabric seemingly absorbing and reflecting the soft light in equal measure. Her presence possessed a tangible yet ethereal quality, akin to morning mist bathed in sunlight. Moving with deliberate grace, she unfailingly chose the same windowside table. While her features remained partially veiled beneath a broad-brimmed hat, her hands, graceful weathered, adorned with a solitary silver ring on her right index finger, were visible. Week after week, I observed her ritual unfolding with meticulous regularity. Seated for exactly 7 minutes, her posture impeccable, hands clasped in her lap. As foretold by the note, she never placed an order, never acknowledged anyone. Yet, the small tokens she left behind caught my attention. A vintage button, a pressed flower, an old compass with a cracked face but a needle that spun with peculiar vigor. The cafe staff appeared oblivious to these items. Inquiring about the woman elicited glazed-over gazes and swift subject changes, as if she occupied a blind spot in their perception. Each object she left exuded a subtle energy, hinting at fragments of a narrative I struggled to piece together. On a rainy Tuesday, I encountered her seated at my customary table. Her gaze turned towards me, and though her features remained indistinct, I sensed her acknowledgement of my presence. Before her rested an ancient leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. With a subtle nod, she indicated the chair opposite her. As I settled in, the cafe's ambient hum seemed to recede into a distant murmur. The air between us crackled with potential, akin to the pregnant pause before a storm. In a voice reminiscent of autumn leaves rustling in a gentle breeze, she spoke. "You've been observing." It was not a query. Few discern the patterns nowadays. Fewer still invest the time to watch, to ponder, to question the interstices between moments. Flipping open the journal, she unveiled pages inscribed with the same elegant handwriting from the initial note. "Time eludes conventional understanding," she continued, her fingers tracing the script. "It folds and unfolds like origami, creating pockets where secrets gather. Some tread these folds, harvesting what snags in the creases." The journal contained depictions of the objects she had been leaving behind, each sketch accompanied by coordinates, dates, and enigmatic annotations that seemed to shift and morph when viewed from varying angles. "Why me?" I inquired, my voice barely above a whisper. She smiled, her countenance still veiled. "You possess the patience for patterns, the capacity to abide in uncertainty without craving answers. Most crucially, you comprehend that certain enigmas are meant to be experienced rather than solved." Rising, she left the journal on the table. "Now, it is your turn," she murmured softly. "Watch for those who observe the patterns. Lead them back to wander through breadcrumbs." When my gaze lifted from the journal, she had vanished. The cafe's ambient symphony flooded back like a gentle tide. The rain continued its steady cadence against the panes, and the fragrance of coffee lingered in the air. The journal remained, substantial and tangible beneath my touch, its pages now vacant where the writing had been. I remained faithful to my Tuesday sojourns at 9:17 a.m. Occasionally, I glimpse others akin to me, silently watching, observing. At times, I leave behind modest tokens, a vintage key, a pressed leaf, a shard of sea glass polished by time. Witnessing their discovery of these mementos, I witness the spark of curiosity igniting in their eyes. The woman in the pearl gray coat has not reappeared, yet her essence lingers in the tranquil interludes between heartbeats, in the gentle rain against the windows, in the soft swirl of steam rising from coffee cups. I've learned that certain mysteries require no unraveling. They demand witnessing, reverence, and transmission, akin to whispered secrets in the fleeting spaces between heartbeats. Story 20. In the midst of a tranquil afternoon amble through an abandoned courtyard, a captivating rich scent caught my attention. Its spicy allure a sharp contrast to the desolation that surrounded me. The fragrance, a mesmerizing fusion of exotic spices and aged stone, floated through the air like a silent messenger. Step by step, I felt an irresistible pull towards the origin of this mysterious perfume, a compelling urge to unravel the enigma shrouded within it. The courtyard, a forsaken haven, lay enclosed by weather-beaten walls cloaked in ancient ivy. Soft autumn breezes stirred fallen leaves across weathered flagstones, composing whispered melodies that seemed to harmonize with the enigmatic aroma. The fading light of late afternoon filtered through the canopy of branches above, casting intricate shadows that danced leisurely across the ground. Venturing further into the space, I noticed a subtle shift in the air's quality. The scent, saturated with spices, grew more potent near a specific corner where an aged wooden door stood, its surface etched with intricate patterns worn by the passage of time. The smell stirred distant memories just beyond my grasp, fragments of childhood winters or fleeting dreams upon waking. A peculiar stone bench beckoned to me, nestled against the wall. Smooth and weathered by years of rain and wind, it inexplicably emitted a welcoming warmth beneath my touch. Seated upon it, the fragrance seemed to pulse gently, akin to a distant heartbeat. Despite its strangeness, the sensation offered a peculiar comfort. From my vantage point, I began to notice peculiar intricacies previously overlooked. Small, carved symbols adorned the bases of surrounding columns, their meanings lost to the ages. They appeared to subtly shift when viewed from different angles, a mere trick of the light, I reasoned. The ivy clinging to the walls occasionally quivered, even in the absence of a breeze. Time seemed to ebb and flow uniquely within that space. Shadows elongated at an unusual pace, and minutes, or were they hours, slipped through my grasp. The spicy fragrance would intermittently intensify, then dissipate, only to return from a different direction, guiding me through an invisible waltz. Each wave brought new undertones, hints of cinnamon, whispers of cardamom, echoes of something ancient and profound. One evening, an elder gardener materialized as I sat there tending to foliage in a distant corner. When I inquired about the scent, she offered a knowing smile but no explanation. Her cryptic words lingered. Some places remember things we've forgotten. Before I could press for more information, she vanished behind a hedge, leaving me to ponder her cryptic message. The mystery deepened as I discovered curious objects appearing on the bench during subsequent visits. A tarnished brass key without a lock to match, an unknown species of dried flower, a fragment of paper inscribed with an elegant script in a language alien to me. Each item vanished by my next visit, replaced by another enigma. Weeks turned into months, and I found myself drawn back to the courtyard almost daily. The aroma became a constant companion, evolving subtly with each encounter while retaining its fundamental essence. Faint movements flickered at the edge of my vision, elusive, fleeting presences that dissipated upon direct inspection. On a particularly hushed evening, as the sun's final rays bathed the walls in golden hues, a thin wisp of fragrant smoke spiraled from between two flagstones near the bench. It twisted into intricate shapes, almost resembling letters before melding into the encroaching darkness. The smoke carried the same spicy scent, intensified, more immediate. Against my better judgment, I reached out to touch the smoke, expecting it to disperse. Instead, a gentle warmth enveloped my fingers, and for an ephemeral moment, I felt connected to an ancient, expansive presence. Visions flashed through my mind. Generations of individuals who had sat upon this bench, each embroiled in their own enigmatic tale. Their stories intertwined with mine, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences that transcended the constraints of time. As winter neared, the fragrance shifted once more, becoming subtler, more elusive. The courtyard assumed a different persona in the chillier months, yet the sense of mystery endured. The scent now manifested only at specific intervals, dawn, dusk, and those peculiar moments when time itself seemed to halt. To this day, I frequent the courtyard, the spicy aroma a familiar companion whose origins remain shrouded in secrecy. Just when I believe I am nearing an understanding, the scent morphs, unveiling new facets that deepen the enigma rather than unraveling it. Perhaps some mysteries are not meant to be deciphered, but rather to be experienced, embraced, and carried as cherished secrets. The words of the elderly gardener linger in my thoughts. Some places remember things we've forgotten. Amidst the quietude of sitting on that ancient bench, inhaling the enigmatic fragrance, I muse whether it is not the place that recalls, but the memories themselves seeking a listener to share their untold stories. Story 21. Amid the relics of my attic, I stumbled upon an ancient radio, its dial worn and its speakers silent, until a tranquil night when it crackled to life, unexpected. From the static emerged faint, fragmented voices and distant melodies, carrying the bittersweet scent of aged metal and lost dreams. Each note felt like a whisper from a past yearning to be embraced once more. After that initial night, I found myself drawn to the attic more often. The space exuded a certain charm, with dust motes pirouetting in the moonlit beams that filtered through the small window. The wooden floorboards murmured softly beneath my feet as I approached the corner where the radio rested on an old oak table, its mahogany surface dimmed by years of loyal service. Every evening, as twilight painted the sky in delicate watercolors, I settled into the worn leather armchair beside the radio. The ritual became as natural as breathing, tuning the brass dial, observing the soft amber glow of the vacuum tubes, and waiting. Sometimes, only the gentle hiss of static filled the air, reminiscent of rain falling. Yet on certain nights pregnant with possibility, something extraordinary unfolded. The music would commence, not abruptly, but gradually emerging from the white noise, akin to a photograph slowly developing in a dark room. The melodies were unlike any I had heard before, waltzes that seemed to float on air, jazz pieces whispering of long-forgotten smoke-filled rooms, and voices singing in unfamiliar languages that felt strangely known. One autumn evening, as the winds whispered through the trees outside, a shift occurred in the radio's broadcast. Amid the musical interludes, I discerned soft, clear words. Remember the garden, remember the dance, remember the promise. The voice transcended gender and age, yet it carried a warmth that stirred a sense of recognition deep within me. I began documenting these enigmatic transmissions in a journal, noting the moon's phases, the weather, and any discernible patterns. The pages filled with descriptions of songs that seemed to echo my thoughts, of voices recounting memories I had never lived but felt intimately familiar. The radio appeared to possess knowledge of my past, my dreams, the quiet yearnings I had concealed. Winter descended, casting longer nights and earlier shadows. The attic grew colder, yet I remained enveloped in the cocoon of sound the radio provided. At times I would doze off in the armchair, only to awaken hours later with the radio still murmuring, its gentle broadcasts intertwining with my dreams. During those fleeting moments between sleep and wakefulness, I could almost glimpse the ethereal figures behind the voices, their forms wavering like smoke in the dimness. The most profound broadcast arrived on a snowy night, the world cloaked in tranquil white. The radio addressed me directly, recounting details of my childhood long forgotten, the hue of my first bicycle, the name of a cherished pet, the melody my grandmother hummed while baking. Instead of fear, a profound peace washed over me, a gentle reminder of my essence. As months passed, subtle shifts manifested in my daily existence. Colors appeared more vibrant, memories sharper, dreams laden with significance. The radio's influence transcended its mysterious transmissions, stirring something dormant within me. I found myself humming melodies unknown to me but familiar as my own heartbeat. On quiet nights when the radio fell silent for hours, I pondered the nature of reality. How many unseen layers enveloped us? How many life frequencies played concurrently, just beyond our perception? The radio seemed less a device and more a portal, offering glimpses into parallel dimensions. I refrained from dissecting its components, sensing its magic, should it be deemed so, resided in the realm between reality and imagination. Now, as I pen this narrative, the radio continues its nightly serenades. Its mysteries remain shrouded, yet I've embraced that certain questions hold more worth than their answers. Amidst the gentle static between songs, within the whispered words that might be messages or memories, I've encountered a different truth. One that resonates not with the mind, but with the heart that remembers what it has never known. The amber glow of the vacuum tubes now serves as my nocturnal beacon, and the soft crackle of its speaker forms the backdrop to my dreams. Before slumber claims me, I sometimes ponder if elsewhere, another soul listens to their own enigmatic radio, catching echoes of my existence as I do of theirs, all connected by unseen waves of sound and memory, waltzing eternally through the night. Story 22. On a misty evening, I strolled past an abandoned playground where rusted swings swayed gently in the breeze. Amid the cool air, a faint, almost imperceptible laughter lingered, a ghostly echo of joyous voices that once danced in the wind. The scent of damp grass and aged metal mingled, creating an eerie aura that whispered of bygone days, filled with laughter, now lost to time. Intrigued, I gravitated towards a weathered bench near the slide, its wooden slats polished smooth by countless parents who had watched their children play. The playground's metal structure cast elongated shadows in the dim light, forming shifting patterns that danced at the edges of my vision. A soft wind whispered through the surrounding trees, carrying the earthy fragrance of autumn leaves. That initial evening, I convinced myself I was merely taking a different path home, seeking solace after a taxing day. Yet the tranquil solitude of the playground beckoned me back night after night, each visit peeling back new layers of its enigmatic charm. It had become my haven, a realm where time seemed to ebb and flow in a mysterious dance. One serene night, seated on my usual bench, I noticed a curious anomaly about the carousel. Without human touch, the metal horse figures shimmered with an unusual warmth, as if graced by tiny, eager hands. A peculiar energy clung to the air, akin to the remnants of children's laughter suspended in the spaces between sounds. With passing weeks, subtle shifts began to unfold in the playground. Swings swayed gently without a breath of wind, and faint footprints materialized in the morning dew, vanishing as the sun ascended. The metal slide, chilled by evening mist, occasionally bore a warmth as if a child had just slid down its length. I began to carry a notebook, documenting these peculiar occurrences. The more I observed, the more intricate patterns emerged. The phantom laughter, once a mere whisper, now seemed to follow a hidden timetable, teasingly audible during certain twilight hours, especially under the full moon's glow and the mist's embrace from the nearby woods. The sound remained just beyond reach, a faint murmur like a dream's whisper. Other park visitors, mainly dog walkers and joggers, passed through swiftly, oblivious to the playground's mysteries. But I had unlocked its secret, realizing that this place held a unique magic reserved for those who listened and watched with intent. One evening, a small red ball sat motionless on the carousel platform. As I drew near, it shifted slightly, nudged by an unseen force. Tension filled the air, and for a fleeting moment, distant children's songs hummed on the brink of hearing. The ball rolled in a perfect circle around the carousel's center pole. That night, I lingered longer than usual, witnessing the moon ascend over the trees. The playground's shadows seemed to dance independently, the swings swaying in synchrony, creating a mesmerizing rhythm that mirrored my heartbeat. The elusive laughter grew more palpable, not in volume but in essence, enveloping me like a warm hug. In that moment, a profound revelation washed over me. This playground wasn't haunted in the conventional sense. It was a preserved sanctuary, frozen in a timeless bliss. The unheard laughter was the collective echo of every child who had frolicked here, their joy imprinted on this space like a photograph exposed to light. The enigmatic events weren't meant to frighten, but to remind us of the pure magic inherent in places where innocence and wonder once reigned supreme. Months later, I still frequent my special playground nearly every evening. I've learned to sense the subtle cues signaling the peak of the inaudible laughter, a certain quality of mist, a specific hue of twilight, the anticipatory hush in the air. Sometimes I bring a book and read softly to the empty playground, and on those nights the swings sway with purpose, the carousel horses stand tall, and the laughter, though silent, feels intimately near. This tale remains mine alone, cherished for the intimate bond forged with a realm existing between memory and enchantment. The playground has taught me that some mysteries are to be embraced, not unraveled, to be cherished and lived. And so, I continue my twilight visits, content to be the silent witness to a spectacle unfolding in whispers and shadows, accompanied by laughter that dances just beyond mortal ear's grasp. Story 23. In a forgotten workshop brimming with remnants of skilled hands, a fractured clock caught my attention. Its exposed gears and motionless face held a story trapped within the confines of time. As I observed the erratic dance of its wayward hands, the air around me, cool and musty, carried whispers of ancient stories intertwined with the scent of oil and rust. This autumn evening, the workshop beckoned to me, its weathered door slightly open, a silent invitation into its realm. Moonbeams filtered through dusty windows, casting elongated shadows over workbenches, smoothed by years of meticulous craftsmanship. The wooden floor creaked softly beneath my steps, releasing hints of aged pine and forgotten artistry with each footfall. Clocks of various kinds adorned the shelves, a congregation of timekeepers frozen in silence, from grandiose grandfather clocks to dainty pocket watches nestled in velvet-lined compartments, their golden sheen dulled by the passage of time. Yet amidst this array, one specific clock captivated me. A mantle timepiece adorned with an intricate brass visage, its cracked crystal resembling a delicate spider's web. As I settled into a weathered chair that seemed to await my presence, I noticed a peculiar phenomenon about the broken clock. Despite its lack of power, the second hand occasionally twitched, a subtle backward movement before returning to stillness. At first, I questioned my perception in the dim light, wondering if my eyes played tricks on me. The rhythm of my breath seemed to synchronize with these faint movements, drawing me closer to inspect the delicate gears within. Although tarnished, the brass mechanisms retained a mystical gleam, bearing enigmatic symbols unfathomable to my seasoned eye in antique timepiece collection. A gentle breeze whispered through the workshop, carrying a distant melody of wind chimes that gradually transformed into the gentle tolling of clock bells. An electrifying heaviness permeated the air, causing the fine hairs on my skin to stand on end. Tentatively, I reached out to touch the clock's face, surprised by the unexpected warmth beneath my fingertips. A peculiar awareness washed over me, foreign memories intertwining with my own consciousness. Visions of the workshop's prime flooded my mind, sunlight streaming through pristine windows, the symphony of ticking clocks in harmonious unison, and an elderly craftsman hunched over the very timepiece before me. His nimble hands worked with practiced expertise, assembling a creation far beyond a mere clock. The enigmatic symbols on the gears shifted and blurred, rearranging into cryptic patterns that teased the fringes of my understanding. Each new configuration whispered of alternate realities, of time as a vast ocean with endless currents and eddies, diverging from the linear flow of a river. Reality itself seemed to sway gently to the broken clock's rhythm, casting elongated shadows that defied logic. Transparent figures flitted at the periphery of my vision, moving through the workshop in a time separate from my own, coexisting in a realm of overlapping moments. My hand remained ensconced upon the clock's face, a sense of tranquil fascination preventing me from withdrawing. The warmth spread through my being, unraveling a comprehension beyond verbal articulation. This timepiece was no ordinary creation. It was a portal to the essence of time itself, crafted by an individual privy to secrets beyond human grasp. As night descended, a soft ticking resonated from the clock, its gears motionless yet emitting an ethereal rhythm. The figures gained substance with each tick, their movements growing more pronounced. Among them I recognized the elderly craftsman, our gazes meeting fleetingly across the expanse of years. The workshop filled with the metallic tang of ozone, temperature oscillating between warmth and coolness in gentle undulations. The distant ticking faded, and I realized my perception of time had begun to blur. Moments stretched and compressed like elastic, melding the boundaries of past, present, and future into a fragile tapestry. When I finally lifted my hand, the workshop returned to its abandoned facade, but an intrinsic shift had occurred. The broken clock sat innocuously, yet pulsed with latent energy, a brass and time heart awaiting the next soul to uncover its mysteries. I frequent the workshop now, its whereabouts a mystery even to myself. Sometimes I linger for hours in the aged craftsman's chair, witnessing the dance of light and shadow upon the fractured timepiece. And on rare occasions, when the stars align, I lay my hand upon its face and drift into the realm between seconds, where time converges into a harmonious symphony of infinite potential. I refrained from repairing the shattered timepiece, understanding that some things are more beautiful in their imperfection, breeding crevices for magic to seep into our world. In the quiet depths of night, with the workshop bathed in moonlight and memories, I swear I hear the faint ticking, a cadence counting out the moments that never were and forever shall be. Story 24. On a misty coastal night, I ventured to an abandoned pier that reached out into the shadowy, unsettled waters. Etched into a worn beam were intricate symbols, softly glowing beneath the moon's pale gaze. The tang of the sea breeze carried a hint of enigma, and as my fingers traced the marks, I sensed a connection to a long-buried secret beneath the waves. The gentle lap of waves against aged pillars wove a hypnotic melody, drawing me into deep contemplation. Standing there, I felt the aged wood beneath my feet murmuring with each step, echoing the footfalls of bygone ages. The air hung heavy with the scent of salt and damp wood, mingled with something ancient, evoking memories of forgotten tomes and hidden chambers. Night after night, I found myself drawn back to that pier, lured by an inexplicable force. Each visit unveiled fresh intricacies in the cryptic symbols, curves shifting in the moon's glow, lines forming new patterns with the changing tide. The soft creak of the planks became a familiar companion, a dialogue between the sea and the pier delving into its realm. During my fifth visit, a peculiar discovery awaited. The air around the marked beam held a warmth distinct from the cool maritime breeze. When I pressed my palm against it, the wood pulsed with a gentle heat, synchronizing with my heartbeat. A subtle yet undeniable sensation, akin to cradling a cup of tea that never cooled. The fog often thickened as I studied the symbols, enfolding me like a gentle shroud. Within its embrace, sounds dulled and distant, creating a cocoon where time flowed at its own pace. Sometimes amidst the haze I fancied I heard a faint hum rising from beneath the pier, melding with the ocean's cadence. One tranquil night, seated beside the marked beam, I noted the water below had stilled, a mirror of obsidian reflecting the moon's glow with pristine clarity. Yet beneath that mirror-like surface, elusive shadows danced with purposeful grace. Neither fish nor common marine life, their forms remained enigmatic. The symbols began to infiltrate my dreams, morphing into maps of uncharted realms, or moving beneath my touch like living script. I commenced a journal, capturing the symbols as they manifested each night, observing their subtle shifts with the moon's phases. Weeks passed, revealing that other visitors to the pier remained oblivious to the markings. Their eyes slid over the beam as if it were mere weathered timber. Even my attempts to draw attention to them were met with polite nods and swift topic changes, gazes skimming away like water off glass. The turning point arrived with the new moon. In the absence of lunar light, the symbols emitted a soft phosphorescence, casting a gentle glow of blue-green, rippling like undersea currents. The wood's warm pulse intensified, the hum beneath the pier sharpened, carrying notes akin to an ancient language nearly forgotten. Trinkets began appearing near the marked beam, stones etched with spirals, shards of iridescent shells aglow from within, strands of silvery seaweed weaving delicate patterns. Each item felt like a message, though their meaning remained elusive. Now, as I pen this, I realize I've become entwined in this mystery. The symbols have begun to surface elsewhere, in my bathroom mirror's condensation, in rain patterns on my windows, in the swirls of cream in my morning coffee. No longer mere cryptic symbols, they now resemble a dialogue I slowly decipher. The pier has transcended its physical form, evolving into a threshold, a boundary between known and unknown. The enigmatic allure of the symbols unfolds continuously, never fully revealing itself, but offering just enough to keep me returning, night after night, to that juncture where the ordinary world meets the ancient, profound, and infinitely patient realm beyond human grasp. I've learned to find solace in uncertainty, to embrace the gentle tug of the unknown. As I sit here now, enveloped in rolling fog, feeling the familiar warmth beneath my touch, I comprehend that my role isn't to unravel this enigma, but to be a part of its ongoing narrative, adding my own chapter to the age-old tale woven in this liminal space between land and sea. Story 25. While rummaging through dusty boxes in the attic that held decades-old secrets, my fingers stumbled upon a hidden canvas tucked behind a weathered trunk. The painting, though incomplete, depicted a figure caught in the midst of a mysterious transformation, a play of light and shadow, creating an aura of familiarity that tugged at my senses. The air in the attic was thick with the scent of ancient paper and memories long forgotten, wrapping me in a cocoon of nostalgia. As I immersed myself in the intricate details of the brushstrokes, a subtle feeling crept over me, as if the portrait held whispered secrets about a past never lived. I settled into an aged wooden chair, the dance of dust particles in the soft beam of light from the attic window captivating my gaze. The painting seemed to shimmer in the dimness, its unfinished edges blending into the raw canvas like watercolor merging with parchment. The face on the canvas existed in a state of paradox, clearly defined features mingling with vague, fleeting ones, almost as if the artist had been interrupted mid-creation. The old house groaned softly, its bones creaking in a lulling rhythm that accompanied my introspection. Running my fingers along the worn wooden frame, I traced the years etched into its surface, a silent witness to the passage of time. There was a magnetic pull in the eyes of the portrait, meticulously painted with a depth that transcended the boundaries of the canvas. As evening descended, a golden light infused the attic, casting elongated shadows across the floor. The air turned cooler, carrying the crisp promise of autumn through a crack in the window frame, adding a touch of magic to the scene. In the waning light, I found myself conversing softly with the enigmatic portrait, sharing whispers of thoughts and memories into the growing darkness. A peculiar discovery unfolded as night fell. The brushstrokes seemed to shift and transform, offering glimpses of different emotions with each passing moment. The unfinished parts held a myriad of possibilities, a dance of ambiguity that stirred my imagination. Time lost its grip in that attic realm, hours slipping away like elusive shadows as I delved deeper into the mysteries of the portrait. And behind it, a faint inscription awaited my discovery. Remember, the light changes everything. Written in a dreamlike script that hinted at a surreal connection between the art and its beholder. Bringing old journals and faded photographs into the attic, I surrounded the portrait with whispers of the past, seeking answers in the fragments of forgotten stories. The house murmured cryptic tales as I sifted through memories, trying to decipher the identity of the elusive figure captured on canvas. Some nights, when sleep eluded me, I sought solace in the quiet company of the portrait. Moonlight bathed the room in a ghostly glow, illuminating the unfinished masterpiece in a spellbinding aura. In those hushed moments, faint echoes of ancient lullabies seem to resonate from the unfinished spaces of the painting, weaving a tapestry of forgotten dreams. With each visit, the portrait unveiled subtle transformations, its enigmatic features taking on new meanings that danced on the edge of comprehension. The eyes, like windows to another realm, mirrored my innermost thoughts, reflecting the shifting tides of my emotions in a silent dialogue with the night. The painting evolved into a mirror of my soul, capturing not just my likeness, but the essence of my unspoken desires and fears. In the intimate embrace of the attic, I bared my heart to the silent observer, sharing untold stories and whispered confessions that mingled with the whispers of the past. As seasons drifted by beyond the attic window, a revelation dawned upon me. The portrait's incompleteness was not a flaw, but a deliberate choice, a doorway to perpetual transformation. The artist, in their wisdom, had left the work unfinished, inviting viewers to partake in the ever-changing narrative of the piece, a canvas of endless possibilities. I did not seek to unravel the mystery of the portrait's origin. Instead, I embraced my role as its custodian, safeguarding the delicate balance between revelation and enigma. The attic turned into a sanctuary where time flowed in mysterious currents, blurring the boundaries between observer and observed, art and reality. Even now, after years have passed, I still ascend the narrow stairs to commune with the portrait. Sometimes, a notebook in hand, I document the subtle shifts in light and shadow that dance across the canvas, capturing ephemeral moments of beauty. But most often, I sit in silent companionship with the enigmatic artwork, a silent witness to the ever-unfolding tale it whispers in the quiet attics of my mind. The portrait remains unfinished, a perpetual work in progress that defies the constraints of time and space. In its incompleteness, it finds perfection, an eternal metamorphosis that mirrors the evolution of the human spirit. The mystery lingers, not as a riddle to be solved, but as an experience to be embraced, one tranquil moment at a time, in the gentle, dust-laden light of the attic's sacred embrace. Story 26. As I sifted through the forgotten treasures in my attic, my fingers brushed against a weathered album hidden in the shadows. Nestled within its pages, a faded photograph captured a moment frozen in time, whispering secrets of days long past. The scene depicted a garden party bathed in the golden hues of yesteryears, where elegantly dressed figures lingered with enigmatic smiles, their gazes holding untold tales. A subtle fragrance of antique roses and aged parchment enveloped me, weaving a tapestry of nostalgia and intrigue. I felt an inexplicable pull towards the image, as if the figures within yearned to share their forgotten narrative with me. The soft afternoon sunlight filtered through dusty windows, casting a warm embrace over the wooden floorboards, inviting me to unravel the mysteries veiled within the photograph. Settling into a time-worn rocking chair, its rhythmic creaks harmonizing with the whispers of the past, I traced the worn edges of the photograph with reverence. Each crease and imperfection beneath my touch told a story of its own, inviting me to delve deeper into the enigma before me. The figures in the picture seemed to stir, their movements imperceptible yet undeniable, as if beckoning me to uncover the truths obscured by time's veil. Amongst the frozen revelry, one figure stood apart, a woman in a pearl-white dress, her gaze fixed upon the camera with a gaze that seemed to pierce through the ages. As I studied her ethereal visage, a chill crept into the attic air, mingling with the lingering scent of roses that now bloomed with an intensity that defied reason. Closing my eyes, I surrendered to the serenity of the moment, allowing the mysteries of the past to envelop me in their ethereal embrace. Upon opening my eyes, a subtle shift had transpired. The once static sunset in the photograph now pulsed with a radiant luminescence, casting a spell of enchantment over the scene. The woman in the pearl-white dress appeared to move, her hand reaching towards an unseen horizon, drawing me deeper into the enigmatic tableau before me. The boundary between past and present blurred, as if time itself had woven a tapestry of dreams and memories, inviting me to partake in its dance. The ambient sounds metamorphosed around me, the creaking of the rocking chair melded with distant melodies of a bygone era, serenading me with whispers of forgotten waltzes and faded laughter. The fragrance of roses intertwined with subtle notes of Earl Grey tea and freshly baked pastries, painting a portrait of a world suspended in a timeless reverie. As I gazed upon the photograph, the figures transcended their two-dimensional confines, gaining depth and life before my eyes. The woman in the pearl-white dress emerged as a specter of grace and mystery, her pendant catching the light in a mesmerizing dance of shadows and radiance. The attic's shadows deepened, yet the photograph retained its ethereal glow, revealing intricate details previously unseen, a teacup quivering with unseen tremors, a butterfly frozen in mid-flight, its delicate wings poised for flight. Lost in the timeless embrace of the photograph, I felt a kinship with the woman in the pearl-white dress, her eyes meeting mine across the chasm of years, sharing a silent communion of shared secrets and unspoken truths. Her pendant shimmered, a mirror to a long-forgotten relic tucked away in my grandmother's jewelry box, bridging the chasm between past and present with a delicate whisper of remembrance. As evening descended upon the attic, casting its dusky veil over the room, the photograph gradually returned to its dormant state, the figures freezing once more in their timeless dance. The music of the past faded into a distant echo, leaving only the lingering scent of roses and the quiet rustle of memories suspended in the twilight of the attic. With a reverence reserved for sacred relics, I placed the photograph back into its album, knowing that its secrets would await my return. Descending the attic stairs, the weight of my grandmother's pendant against my chest served as a silent reminder of the mysteries that dwell within the folds of time. In the hush of the evening, a phantom waltz echoed in the recesses of my mind, carrying me on a journey through the mists of forgotten histories and lost whispers. Some enigmas, I realized, are best left to linger in the gentle embrace of uncertainty, floating like ethereal specters between the realms of what once was and what may never be. The woman in the pearl-white dress had imparted her arcane wisdom to me, a silent testament to the ephemeral nature of time's mysteries. And in that fleeting moment of communion with the past, I embraced the allure of the unknown, content to let the secrets of the photograph fade into the soft twilight of memory, where dreams and reality intertwine in a dance as old as time itself. Story 27. Deep within the dim recesses of a revered library, I stumbled upon a hidden alcove nestled behind towering shelves of ancient manuscripts long forgotten. The soft, muted light seeping through a weathered window unveiled dusty volumes and artifacts that murmured tales of bygone wisdom. The aroma of leather-bound books and aged paper enveloped the space, enveloping me in a sense of having unearthed a clandestine refuge of knowledge reserved solely for the most inquisitive spirits. As the guardian of the library by night, I had grown accustomed to the tranquil nocturnal cadence of the building. The faint creak of wooden shelves settling, the whisper of wind drifting through age-worn ventilation shafts, and the distant ticking of the grand clock in the central hall. Yet this alcove felt distinct, as if it existed in its own realm of time, untouched by the modern world beyond the library's weathered walls. I found myself drawn to this enclave during my nightly patrols, observing how the moonlight wove ever-shifting patterns through the intricate lead-light window. The dancing shadows seemed to morph into enigmatic symbols on the weathered wooden floor, reminiscent of forgotten scripts. At times, when the night was exceptionally hushed, I could almost swear I caught the faintest echo of pages turning, though I always stood alone in this secluded corner. One night, as I perused the books lining the walls of my sanctuary, I noticed a peculiar arrangement. The smooth leather spines, worn by centuries of handling, seemed to form a deliberate pattern when viewed from certain angles. The varying heights, subtle tonal differences, and meticulous positioning hinted at a purpose beyond mere chance. I devoted more time to studying these books, meticulously documenting their placements, and observing how the moonlight interacted with them throughout the night. My flashlight beam would catch gilded lettering that seemed to shift with the passage of time, revealing fragments of text in unfamiliar languages. The air in the alcove grew denser with each passing night, laden with the weight of untold narratives. During my explorations, I stumbled upon a peculiar tome that exuded warmth, as though it had just been relinquished by another reader. Its pages lay blank, yet under the midnight glow of my flashlight, I discerned faint traces of writing that shimmered and transformed before my eyes. The words eluded my grasp, fleeting like fragments of a dream upon waking. The tolling of the grand clock marked the hours as I delved deeper into the enigma of the alcove. I began noticing subtle shifts, books that had subtly changed positions between my visits, the window framing improbable night skies, and the persistent sensation of a presence lingering just beyond sight. My fellow guards remarked on changes in my demeanor. I spoke of the library's history with an intimate familiarity, as though I had witnessed its inception centuries past. I found myself comprehending fragments of ancient tongues unlearned, and my slumber was inundated with visions of vast halls of wisdom extending far beyond the library's physical confines. The most astonishing revelation occurred one wintry night beneath the full moon and crystalline air. Seated in my customary spot, a book slid from its shelf, unfurling to reveal a detailed chronicle of a covert society of librarians, rumored to have unearthed the means to encapsulate knowledge not solely in words, but within the very essence of space itself. They had crafted sanctuaries akin to my alcove, repositories where the boundary between reader and text, past and present, blurred into obscurity. It dawned on me then that I had become a part of something grander than myself. The alcove had selected me as it had chosen others before, beckoning me into a legacy spanning centuries. The whispers I heard were not mere echoes of an aged edifice, but the voices of countless readers who had occupied this very spot, contributing their insights to the collective wisdom enshrined within these walls. Now, as I pen this account in the soft radiance of my flashlight, I realize that the true essence of this place may forever elude me. The alcove remains an enigma, its mysteries unfolding at their own pace, like hidden words emerging on ostensibly blank pages. Yet I derive solace from the knowledge that within the depths of this ancient library lies a realm where the confines of reality soften, where knowledge flows like a gentle stream, and where the act of reading transcends the mundane constraints of time and space. I continue my nightly vigil, safeguarding both the library and its concealed marvels. The alcove patiently awaits in its corner, eager to embrace the next curious soul who chances upon its threshold. And on occasion, when the moon hangs just right and the silence deepens, I swear I catch the soft rustle of pages turning, as if unseen readers share in my watch, all of us united by the timeless enchantment of words and the enigmas they enshroud. Story 28. In the hush of a late evening, I found myself drawn to an abandoned cinema, its marquee a whisper of forgotten grandeur. Inside, the darkness enveloped me, broken only by the flickering light of a solitary projector, projecting spectral images onto the weathered screen. A fragrance of popcorn and dust lingered in the air, carrying with it a silent tale of dreams and heartaches lost to time. As I settled into a worn velvet seat at the back, a mysterious compulsion pulled me deeper into the narrative of this forsaken palace. The gentle hum of the projector weaved a hypnotic melody, echoing like a distant lullaby from a bygone era. Dust motes danced in the light, forming intricate patterns that seemed to whisper secrets just beyond my grasp. In the shadows of the auditorium, subtle movements caught my eye, like whispers of silk in a soft breeze. The screen revealed scenes from an old film, each frame tinged with a personal intimacy that stirred a sense of intrusion. A woman, veiled in mystery, drifted through the monochrome landscapes, forever elusive, forever seeking. Whispers brushed against my ear, carrying indistinct words that tugged at my senses. The room's temperature fluctuated, creating currents of warmth and coolness that enveloped me in an unseen embrace. The leather armrests retained a lingering warmth, as though a presence had just vacated the seat beside me. The film unfolded with eerie inconsistencies, the woman's dress changing hues, scenes repeating with subtle alterations. Instead of dialogue, the sound system emitted the soft cadence of breathing, punctuated by sighs that echoed in the darkness. Her movements mirrored mine, a haunting reflection of my own presence in this spectral theater. A scent of jasmine mingled with the musty air, infusing the atmosphere with a poignant melancholy, a wistful melody of forgotten origins. The projection shifted, revealing the theater's past, the woman haunting the empty seats, forever in search of a hidden truth. My fingertips grazed a leather-bound diary nestled between the cushions, its faded pages a testament to years of elusive quests for closure. The entries spoke of repeated visits to the cinema, each one ending with the echo of an unattained resolution. The final pages, aged beyond their years, hinted at an unfinished journey, a quest cut short or perhaps fulfilled in silence. As the film neared its enigmatic end, the woman turned towards the camera, her face obscured by static before fading into darkness. The projector's light dimmed, casting me into a realm of shadows broken only by the faint glow of red exit signs. Returning the diary to its resting place, a fleeting touch brushed against mine, a presence felt but unseen, leaving behind a trace of jasmine before vanishing into the night. In the lobby, a figure in a vintage dress lingered by the screen, a silent farewell etched in her gesture. In the years that followed, the scent of jasmine would visit me in moments of old film reverie, a reminder of unseen watchers and untold endings. And in those quiet echoes of the past, I sensed the weight of unspoken stories waiting to be witnessed by kindred souls in the shadows of the cinema's embrace. Story 29. On a chilly, misty evening, I sought refuge at a forgotten bus stop hidden on a quiet street. Beneath the dim glow of a single streetlight, a soft, rhythmic murmur stirred from the shadows around me. The mingling sense of rain-kissed pavement and moist leaves added a haunting intimacy to the sound, hinting at a hidden sorrow of the night. The gentle tap of rain on the metal roof provided a calming backdrop to my solitude. Nestling onto the aged wooden bench, smoothed by years of patient waiting, I noticed the weathered schedule board, barely readable beneath layers of time and neglect, whispering tales of long-abandoned routes. My breath formed wispy clouds in the crisp air as I tuned into the mysterious murmur growing more distinct by the moment. Initially, I mistook it for the wind weaving through the rusted shelter frame or the distant hum of passing cars. Yet there was a deliberate quality to its rhythm, like a conversation just beyond grasp. The sound carried fragments of words, incomplete phrases that danced on the edge of understanding. Above me, the streetlight flickered, casting fleeting shadows that seemed to move with purposeful intent. In that fleeting moment, I noticed something peculiar about the bench beneath me. Intricate patterns, almost like numbers or dates, had been delicately carved into the wood, visible only when caught in the right light. Tracing these enigmatic markings with my fingertips, the murmur shifted its origin. It no longer seemed to emanate from the shadows, but from the very fibers of the bench, resonating through the wood and into my core. The sensation wasn't alarming, but oddly soothing, akin to a lullaby in an unfamiliar language. Each number I touched altered the pitch and rhythm of the sound ever so subtly. The rain continued its gentle serenade, and I found myself swaying imperceptibly to the strange harmony of water and whispers. The air thickened with an unexplainable warmth despite the autumn chill, carrying a faint trace of summer blooms and sun-soaked wood. It felt as though the bus stop existed in its own time bubble, where seasons and memories mingled in a mysterious convergence. Glancing at my watch, I realized it had halted, its hands frozen in an impossible position between numbers. Rather than unsettling me, this detail felt like a natural part of the enigmatic encounter. The lines between reality and dream began to blur, as delicate as moth wings brushing against my consciousness. The murmur gradually transformed into a more structured yet indecipherable cadence. It reminded me of multiple conversations blending in a crowded room, each voice seeming to belong to the same speaker across different time frames. Drifting into a tranquil awareness, images materialized in my mind, fleeting glimpses of past passengers waiting, each leaving an unseen mark on the humble shelter. Their stories seemed to seep from the very walls, carried by the enigmatic murmur that had enveloped me. An elderly woman with kind eyes, holding a letter close to her heart. A young man in an outdated uniform, checking his watch with anticipation. A child in a yellow raincoat drawing patterns in the misted glass. Each vision felt as tangible as my own presence, yet as gentle as morning mist. The streetlight's glow took on a liquid quality, pooling around my feet in mesmerizing patterns. The numbers etched into the bench began to emit a faint glow, casting intricate designs that danced across my skin. Time flowed differently in this place, like honey trickling from a spoon, sweet and unhurried. When I finally reopened my eyes, I noticed the rain had ceased, though I couldn't recall when. The murmur had softened to a barely audible hum, lingering like the afterglow of a dream. The air retained that peculiar warmth, and the engraved numbers continued their subtle radiance. Yet a shift was palpable in the atmosphere. Rising from the bench, I sensed a change within me, as if I had been initiated into a shared secret of all who had waited there before. The mysterious murmur had not unveiled any concrete message or meaning, yet I felt enriched by its presence, touched by something ancient and ever new. As I readied to depart, my reflection in the rain-streaked shelter glass caught my eye. For a fleeting moment, it seemed to blend with the ghostly images of past passengers, our features merging in the dim light. Reaching out to touch the cool surface, the murmur rose once more, briefly, like a parting embrace. Walking away from the bus stop, I carried a steadfast certainty that I had encountered something profound yet indefinable. Though the murmur may have faded, its echo lingered, a gentle reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be unraveled, but simply embraced and cherished in their exquisite uncertainty. Story 30. In the dead of night, I found myself drawn to an abandoned arcade at the city's edge. The neon lights blinked erratically, casting fleeting shadows over the dusty arcade machines. Within the hush of the empty arcade, a soft, rhythmic hum resonated from the shadows, filling the air with a nostalgic blend of musty popcorn and forgotten thrills. It felt as though the arcade was alive, whispering tales of laughter and wistful memories. Tracing my fingers along the worn edges of the game cabinets, I felt the intricate patterns beneath layers of dust. Each step I took left gentle imprints on the carpet of gray powder coating the floor. My breath mingled with a low electrical hum that pervaded the space, creating a strangely comforting melody. In the dim glow, I could discern faded artwork on the machines, fantastical realms and characters now mere ghostly outlines. Some screens flickered weakly, displaying fragmented images that danced like elusive dreams. One machine captured my gaze, an ancient racing game with a weathered leather seat and a steering wheel that seemed to move on its own accord. As I ventured further into the arcade, the temperature dropped noticeably, and the hum grew more melodic. akin to a distant choir in perfect harmony. I found myself swaying gently to its enchanting rhythm, my steps syncing with its mysterious beat. The air brimmed with potential, blurring the line between reality and fantasy in this forgotten sanctuary. A narrow hallway led me to what seemed like a maintenance area adorned with vintage game posters. Each creaking floorboard whispered beneath my feet, joining the arcade's eerie symphony. The hum seemed to react to my presence, altering its tone and intensity with my movements. At the hallway's end stood an old wooden door, its peeling paint resembling intricate circuitry. The brass handle exuded warmth as I turned it, and the hum swelled, engulfing my senses. Beyond the door lay a small room, suffused in a gentle blue radiance. Arcade motherboards adorned the walls, their LED lights flickering in cryptic patterns. At the room's center stood an ancient computer terminal, its screen alive with scrolling text of cryptic origins. The humming emanated from the machine, causing dust particles to dance in the air like celestial bodies. Drawn to the mesmerizing display, I settled into the worn operator's chair. The text on the screen wove intricate patterns that almost made sense, reminiscent of half-remembered dreams. My fingers danced over the aged keyboard, typing words that felt ancient and profound. The hum synchronized with my keystrokes, creating a mesmerizing duet between man and machine. Time seemed to lose meaning in that ethereal space, the blue light seeping into my skin, the hum resonating deep within me. I penned tales of unrealized game worlds and forgotten dreams, and the machine responded with its own coded narratives. When I finally rose, my limbs stiff from the trance, it was as though time had slipped away unnoticed. The hum had become a part of me, its shifts and nuances now my constant companion. The arcade no longer felt forsaken but expectant, as if on the brink of a new beginning. As I navigated back through the arcade, the machine seemed to hum in harmony with my touch, pulsing with latent energy. The racing game's steering wheel stood motionless, yet its screen depicted a road stretching into infinity, bathed in a digital dawn. Pausing at the entrance, I beheld the neon lights, now casting a warm, steady glow. The arcade's hum had transformed into a soothing purr, like a slumbering electronic entity. It was then that I knew I would return, lured by the musical stillness and the promise of undiscovered stories lingering between the games. Stepping outside, the hum lingered as a subtle vibration in my chest, a reminder of the night's enigmatic symphony. In the quiet pre-dawn hours, I can still feel its beckoning call, a harmony of memories and mysteries, forever echoing in the abandoned arcade. Story 31. As the day melted into night, I found myself on a weathered pier that extended into a mist-laden bay. The sea whispered against the wooden pilings, and seabirds called in the distance, setting the stage for a mysterious performance that unfolded before me. A melody, delicate and enigmatic, rose from the meeting of wind and water, weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to echo from hidden realms. The air was heavy with the scent of salt and aged wood, blending into a symphony of nature's own making. With each step I took on the creaking planks, the fog enveloped me like a soft embrace. The time-worn boards groaned beneath my feet, adding a rhythmic undertone to the ethereal music that enveloped me. It was a haunting melody, reminiscent of a forgotten lullaby carried on the breeze, playing with my senses and leading me deeper into the mist. Amber light from lanterns scattered along the pier danced through the fog, casting shifting halos around me. I noticed a curious phenomenon. The railings seemed to vibrate ever so slightly, resonating with the unseen music that filled the air. When I reached out to touch the smooth wood, I felt a gentle tremor, as if the pier itself hummed with a hidden energy. Time seemed to lose its grip as I ventured further into the mist, the symphony evolving into a complex arrangement of harmonies. The wind whispered through the gaps in the planks, the water beat a steady percussion against the pilings, and faint voices seemed to join in a chorus from afar, harmonizing with the natural elements around me. At the end of the pier, an ancient gazebo loomed through the swirling fog, its Victorian architecture a ghostly presence in the night. The music swelled to a gentle crescendo, the gazebo's railings transforming into organ pipes that contributed their own notes to the ethereal composition. Inside, intricate patterns adorned the wooden ceiling, spirals and waves dancing in the lantern light. A weathered brass plaque caught my eye, its inscription worn by time and sea spray. In memory of the symphony, it read, hinting at a bygone era when music and memories intertwined on this very spot. I settled onto a wooden bench within the gazebo, letting the music and mist envelop me in a dreamlike embrace. The temperature remained unusually warm, the lantern light pulsing in time with the melody. Shadows danced across the carved patterns above, creating a mesmerizing play of light and dark. In this suspended moment between reality and reverie, I realized that the pier itself was a grand instrument, crafted by nature to perform its silent symphony each night. As I prepared to depart, the music followed me, a gentle echo in the recesses of my mind. The fog parted to reveal a path back to shore, but the rhythm of the mysterious melody lingered within me. I returned to the pier on misty evenings, drawn by the enigmatic allure of the symphony that never played the same way twice. The music, ever-changing and elusive, whispered of untold stories and forgotten legacies woven into the fabric of the pier. It was a reminder that some mysteries are meant to be embraced, not unraveled, a tribute to the beauty found in the inexplicable moments that linger in our hearts long after they fade into the night. And so the question remained, was I a mere observer of a natural phenomenon, or had I stumbled upon a timeless piece of history, preserved in the eternal notes of a symphony crafted by the sea itself? Story 32. In the heart of a mansion abandoned for decades, a profound stillness enveloped me, almost palpable in its presence. The grand foyer, adorned with portraits veiled in dust and drapes worn by time, exhaled the whispers of bygone days. Every creak of the weary floorboards, every sigh of the wind slipping through shattered panes, spoke volumes of tales long held captive, beckoning me to listen. Soft hues of the late afternoon sun filtered through aged curtains, painting elongated shadows that waltzed upon faded wallpaper. My footsteps, hushed companions, guided me further into the dwelling, accompanied by the gentle descent of dust particles in the air. The scent of ancient wood and forsaken memories mingled in the air, while distant echoes of branches caressing the windows forged a delicate rhythm in the tranquility. A majestic staircase, once resplendent but now veiled in the shroud of time's passage, drew me near. As I ascended, my fingertips trailing the polished banister, a peculiar discovery awaited, a vanishing of dust beneath my touch, revealing gleaming sections as if freshly tended. The wood, though embraced by the mansion's chill, emitted a warmth beneath my palm. The second level unveiled a corridor flanked by closed doors. Here the silence shifted, dense and pregnant with anticipation, akin to the pause between heartbeats. A subtle shift in temperature accompanied my passage by each door, some areas radiating a gentle heat, others cradling pockets of cool air, prompting me to draw my jacket closer. Ajar slightly, one door unveiled an ancient study bathed in the honeyed glow of dusk. Books lined the walls in silent sentinels, their weathered spines whispering of untold knowledge. A sturdy desk, cloaked in a thin film of dust, save for a pristine circle as if a recent presence had graced its surface, commanded the room. Approaching, the floorboards sighed beneath my weight, the chair angled in a manner that hinted at a recent departure. Within the immaculate circle, a faint impression of writing emerged, visible only when touched by the light's caress. We never truly leave. As daylight waned, subtle shifts in the room's ambience unfolded. Gentle currents stirred the air without source, while books murmured softly, their pages rustling as if turned by ethereal hands. Seated at the desk, fingers tracing the grain of the wood, I discerned a harmony in the ambient sounds, the creak of timber, the distant whisper of wind, the subtle rearrangement of objects, a language just beyond comprehension. Time flowed in that space, fluid and unbound. Minutes or hours slipped away as I absorbed the essence that enveloped me. The encroaching darkness felt not ominous but comforting, enfolding the study in a velvety embrace, fostering intimacy within the space. Dust motes, twirling in the fading light, wove patterns resembling script, faces forever shifting beyond grasp. With the night's descent, a phenomenon unfolded. The dust-free circle on the desk emitted a faint luminescence, barely perceptible yet undeniably present. A pulsing glow, akin to breath, caused the room's temperature to undulate with each beat. The words, "We never truly leave," shimmered in the obscurity. Driven by an inexplicable impulse, I extended my hand to the glowing circle, and a profound serenity washed over me. The mansion's silence metamorphosed into a melodic symphony, a chorus of whispers long overlooked but now heard in their entirety. Each creak, each murmur bore significance, narrating stories of those who had lingered in this very spot before me. Upon rising to depart, I noted my watch had ceased its march at some unseen moment during my vigil. The mansion's darkness bore a new quality, a presence rather than an absence of light. Journeying back through the corridor and descending the stairs, I realized that the mansion's silence had never been vacant. It held a treasury of tales, patiently awaiting a listener attuned enough to hear. The thought of revisiting that mansion often lingers, to once again dwell in the study as twilight descends. In the quietude of my own abode, echoes of that melodious silence occasionally brush against my senses, reminding me that spaces harbor more than memories. They cradle fragments of souls who traverse them, lingering in the dusk and shadows, yearning for acknowledgement of their enduring warmth. Story 33. On a regular night disrupted by a sudden deluge, I sought shelter beneath an awning to evade the rain's relentless assault. Amid the drumming of droplets on the pavement, a faint yet urgent whisper rode the storm's gusts. The air, cool and damp, carried the essence of fresh rain intertwined with distant thunder, while the whispered message hinted at enigmatic truths the storm yearned to disclose. Enthralled by the rhythmic symphony of raindrops on the canvas above, I strained to discern the whisper once more. It came, clearer this time, akin to a voice murmuring just over my shoulder. Startled, I turned, only to be met with emptiness and the encroaching darkness of twilight. Streetlights flickered to life, casting gentle halos in the misty atmosphere. The beckoning voice seemed to urge me onward, guiding me towards a narrow alley wedged between weathered brick edifices. Ordinarily, I would have dismissed such a peculiar impulse, but this night bore an aura of intrigue. The whisper bore no ill will, its gentle insistence reminiscent of my grandmother's soothing bedtime tales. With cautious steps, I ventured into the alley, the rain easing into a tranquil mist. The warm brick walls exuded a residual heat, as if they harbored the sun's warmth from centuries past, now slowly releasing it into the night. My footfalls created soft splashes in puddles, casting mesmerizing patterns of light overhead. The alley widened into a secluded courtyard, shielded from the world by surrounding structures. At its heart stood an ancient fountain, weathered by time and the elements. Water cascaded from its spout, harmonizing with the rain to compose a melodic serenade. The whisper, now emanating from the fountain itself, grew stronger as I drew near. Clusters of small blue flowers adorned the fountain's base, their petals emitting an ethereal glow pulsating in sync with the falling water. Unfamiliar blooms, ancient yet freshly blossomed, existing simultaneously across epochs. Intrigued, I knelt beside the fountain, sensing a vague familiarity. Faint markings adorned the stone, resembling inscriptions in an unknown language. As my fingers grazed the symbols, they shifted and transformed beneath my touch, akin to words vanishing in water. The whisper morphed into coherent phrases, alluding to memories, vows, and cyclical time akin to the fountain's spiraling waters. It recounted past visitors drawn to this sanctum on rainy nights, all lured by the same gentle beckoning. In the fountain's pool, reflections materialized, depicting scenes from bygone eras, lives, and moments shared in this very spot. Each reflection wavered, dissolving like fleeting dreams upon waking, leaving behind a faint impression of the witnessed past. The blue flowers pulsed gently, casting shadows that danced along the courtyard walls. Time flowed languidly, akin to honey cascading from a spoon, sweet, unhurried. Content in the courtyard's embrace, I felt no urgency to depart, untroubled by encroaching darkness. The whispers became a soothing presence, akin to a childhood lullaby, half-remembered yet comforting. As the rain persisted in its gentle descent, a veil of water isolated this hidden haven from the mundane world beyond. Secrets whispered in the night, destined to linger in my dreams, forever elusive yet eternally remembered. When I finally rose to depart, a solitary blue flower detached, drifting into my outstretched palm. Its glow dimmed to blend with reality, yet its beauty remained undiminished. The whispers faded as I retraced my steps through the alley, yet their warmth lingered like a fond embrace. Emerging onto the street, the rain had ceased, though the air retained its moisture-laden weight. Familiar streetlights bathed the glistening pavement in their glow, life resuming its usual cadence. Yet within me, I carried the indelible mark of that enigmatic courtyard, forever altered by its gentle mystery. On rainy evenings, a faint echo of whispers still finds me, carried on the breeze. The blue flower rests on my windowsill, outwardly unremarkable to any passing glance. But in the dead of night, when silence reigns, it pulses with a soft light, a reminder of pledges exchanged in the rain, of enigmas veiled just beyond our perception, patiently awaiting discovery by those attuned to the storm's whispers. Story 34. During a tranquil stroll across a serene meadow one early morning, I halted to marvel at the glistening dew adorning the grass. To my surprise, the dewdrops had arranged themselves into minuscule, intricate letters, a script authored by nature itself. The air was filled with the refreshing aroma of damp earth and wildflowers, enveloping me in a soothing embrace. An unshakable feeling lingered within me, as if this transient message was crafted solely for my eyes. The morning mist draped low, casting a soft, pearl-gray veil over everything it touched. Kneeling closer to inspect the dewy letters, my breath stirred subtle ripples in the moisture-laden atmosphere. The letters appeared to shimmer and sway, their forms elusive and just out of grasp. Each stroke and curve exuded delicacy, resembling the finest calligraphy etched in liquid crystal. I found myself drawn back to that meadow each dawn, compelled by an inexplicable force. Every day, fresh messages emerged, their significance eluding me. The dew script evolved with the sun's warming rays, transitioning from clear, precise formations to abstract designs that melded into the grass. Occasionally, I caught glimpses of unfamiliar words in unknown languages, their shapes both strange and oddly familiar. The gentle whisper of the wind through the tall grass became my steadfast companion, accompanied by the early bird's melodic symphony heralding the daybreak. I meticulously documented the messages in a weathered leather journal, my fingers tracing the dampened pages as I transcribed what I beheld. The paper bore a faint ripple from the moisture, as if echoing the essence of the dew-born letters. One mist-laden morning, a peculiar sight caught my eye. The script had started spiraling outward from a central point, crafting an intricate mandala of words and symbols. The air buzzed with a serene energy, and the usual morning noises seemed hushed, as if the meadow itself held its breath in anticipation. A tingling sensation prickled my skin as I followed the spiral with intent eyes, attempting to decipher its enigmatic pattern. The messages manifested in unexpected places, too. I discovered them etched in the condensation on my bedroom window, each droplet meticulously aligned. They materialized in the steam wafting from my morning tea, fleetingly visible before dissipating into the ether. Even the frost patterns on autumn leaves seemed to harbor fragments of this cryptic communication. In my slumber, the scripts materialized, fluid silver streams weaving through landscapes of shadow and light. They divulged secrets in voices reminiscent of rustling leaves and distant wind chimes. Each dawn, I awoke with fading recollections of almost grasping the meaning, slipping away like water through cupped hands. My journal burgeoned, its pages now a testament to this gentle enigma. I often spent hours comparing the patterns, noting their alignment with the moon's phases, the changing seasons, and the subtle shifts in morning light. The more I observed, the more I sensed a profound rhythm, as if the dew script was part of a grand, unhurried dialogue between earth and sky. As winter approached, the messages dwindled, appearing only on pristine mornings when the air was crystalline and serene. I cherished these moments even more, knowing each could be the last until spring's arrival. The frost etched its own rendition of the script, inscribing delicate messages into the frozen grass that sparkled like diamonds in the feeble sunlight. Presently, years later, I still frequent the meadow, though the messages surface less frequently. Sometimes I ponder if they were intended to lead me to this state of tranquil observation, this serene appreciation of the morning's subtle enchantment. The dew still forms its perfect beads on grass and leaf, and though the distinct letters may have faded, I discern something else within their patterns, a reminder that mystery need not always be unraveled to be profound. My journal rests atop my desk, its pages brimming with the captured echoes of those dawn epiphanies. When I peruse it now, I notice how the sketched patterns seem to shift and transform in varying lights, akin to the dew script itself. Perhaps comprehension was never the aim. Perhaps the true blessing lay in the tranquil moments of awe, in mastering the art of pausing to witness the world's small wonders with patient, grateful eyes. The meadow has evolved into my sanctuary, where the boundary between the ordinary and the extraordinary thins in the first light of day. And though I may never decipher the meaning of those crystalline messages, their essence has left an enduring imprint on my soul, teaching me that life's most profound experiences often arise not from grand revelations, but from the gentle unfurling of questions without answers. Story 35. Late one still night, I ventured into an ancient observatory on the edge of town. Among hushed telescopes and dusty star maps, I stumbled upon a carved mural of eyes on a crumbling wall. The expansive, starlit sky outside mingled with a strange glow within, while a cool breeze carrying whispers of ozone and aged parchment hinted that the building itself was sentient, guarding cosmic truths from a forgotten era. The instant I crossed the threshold of the weathered entrance, time seemed to drift. My flashlight's beam illuminated weathered wooden floors that murmured softly beneath my steps, their ancient patterns flowing like frozen streams in the faint light. The air held a peculiar quietness, laden with the weight of numerous nights spent gazing at the heavens. As I ventured further into the circular chamber, my focus shifted to the abandoned instruments. A colossal telescope, its brass tarnished by years of neglect, forever aimed skyward through the dome's aperture. Scattered papers around its base displayed intricate calculations in faded ink, mathematical symbols dancing across their aged surfaces like enigmatic messages from a distant past. The carved eyes that had caught my eye earlier seemed to track my movements, not menacing, but exuding a sense of patient observation, as if they had witnessed countless celestial events over the eons. Some eyes were deeply etched into the stone, while others appeared almost translucent, capturing and reflecting the starlight that filtered through the dome. A gentle breeze stirred the dust, creating languid spirals that shimmered in the moon's glow. the fragrance of old books and metal mingled with another worldly scent, evocative of meteor showers and aurora borealis. I found myself drawn to a particular corner where an antique desk stood, its surface adorned with star maps from different epochs. Upon closer inspection, I noticed something peculiar. The constellations depicted on the oldest documents did not quite align with modern configurations. Initially attributing it to the paper's age, a pattern emerged as I compared more charts. The stars seemed to have shifted gradually, not in accordance with astronomical movements, but as if the sky itself had gently rearranged its celestial tapestry. The desk's drawers opened with soft sighs, revealing leather-bound journals filled with elegant script. The observations documented within spoke of watching eyes in the void and stellar patterns that breathed. While I might have dismissed these as poetic musings, the precise measurements and calculations accompanying them hinted otherwise. A subtle warmth emanated from the walls, despite the chill of the night. Tracing my fingers along the stone, I felt faint vibrations, akin to a slumbering giant's heartbeat. The carved eyes appeared to pulse in harmony, though I could not discern if it was a mere play of shifting shadows. Time flowed uniquely in that space. Minutes elongated like hours as I explored, yet upon consulting my watch, scarcely any time had elapsed. The dome above groaned and adjusted sporadically, tracking an unseen point in the sky without visible mechanical aid. In a journal entry dated decades past, an astronomer chronicled the discovery of a novel celestial entity, something defying classification. This entity seemed to observe Earth as much as Earth observed it. The writer's steady hand faltered toward the entry's close, not out of fear, but due to what they termed the profound resonance of mutual recognition. As the night deepened, comprehension dawned upon me. The observatory had not been forsaken, it had metamorphosed. The carved eyes were not mere decorations, but indicators of a metamorphosis. The structure had transformed into a sentient instrument, a conduit between terrestrial observers and cosmic witnesses. Seated at the aged desk, I watched as stars wheeled above through the dome's opening. The carved eyes in the walls throbbed with stellar cadence, and I felt myself synchronizing with their ancient patience. The boundary between observer and observed, between watcher and watched, blurred increasingly. With dawn's approach, I knew I should depart, yet I sensed a change wrought by my night amidst the watching eyes. The observatory had imparted its secret. We were not solitary in our scrutiny of the cosmos. The cosmos had always been observing us in return, through eyes both carved and celestial. Walking away in the pre-dawn light, I cast a final glance backward. The observatory stood serenely against the brightening sky, its dome aligned toward an imperceptible point among the fading stars. I revisit occasionally, though never lingering as I did on that initial night. The carved eyes endure, eternal in their vigil, a reminder that in the grand spectacle of observation, we are all both spectators and actors. Perhaps the most profound verity I gleaned was that genuine comprehension transcends words or elucidations. It resides in the quiet interstices between starshine and shadow, in the soft throb of ancient stone, and in the patient gaze of eyes that have beheld the cosmos since time immemorial. The observatory's enigma was not meant to be unraveled. It was meant to be felt, a living testament that some mysteries are best cloaked in the gentle velvet of uncertainty. Story 36. On a tranquil night, as a sudden downpour painted the world in shimmering silver, I ventured outside to retrieve my umbrella. A trail of muddy footprints beckoned me, leading away from my doorstep into the misty darkness. The raindrops fell with a steady cadence, tapping out a mysterious melody on the pavement, while the chilly dampness of the air wrapped around me like a whispered secret. Beneath the gentle glow of the porch light, I stood, entranced by the fading imprints left behind by an unseen visitor. Each footprint blurred and softened under the caress of raindrops, morphing into vague, enigmatic shapes against the wet concrete. The evening was hushed, the usual sounds muffled by the soothing white noise of the falling rain. My breath mingled with the cool mist as I pondered the odd marks before me. These footprints were not of my own shoes, nor of any I recognized, yet there was a strange familiarity to them. They seemed to have been made with purposeful intent, each step a careful placement in the symphony of the night. What captivated me most was the faint shimmer that danced upon the edges of the footprints, a hint of moonlight caught within them. Driven by an inexplicable curiosity, I followed the trail, my own footsteps blending with the soft patter of rain on my coat. The air carried a scent of petrichor and something more elusive, a sweet fragrance reminiscent of old books and dried flowers. The path wound through my garden, where rain-kissed leaves and petals glistened like precious jewels. Night-blooming jasmine perfumed the misty air, its blossoms unfurling in silent elegance. The footprints meandered among the plants with uncanny precision, not a single leaf disturbed in their wake. It was as if the creator of these prints possessed an intimate knowledge of every inch of the garden, treading lightly and knowingly. As I traced the path, I observed a peculiar phenomenon. The raindrops around the footprints hesitated briefly before touching the ground, forming fleeting spheres of suspended water. It was a subtle dance, a delicate interplay of elements that whispered of hidden mysteries. The garden path led me to a small clearing where the footprints encircled the space as if marking a sacred ground. The grass within the circle seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly luminescence, each blade swaying in a breeze that eluded my senses. Kneeling within the circle, I reached out to touch the ethereal grass, feeling a faint vibration that resonated through my fingertips. The raindrops within the circle sang a silent chorus as they descended, each one a note in a melody only nature could compose. Upon rising, I noticed the footprints continued beyond the circle, growing lighter and more ephemeral, as if the presence that had left them was gradually fading into the night. The mysterious scent intensified, mingling with the rain in a hypnotic blend that soothed my senses. Following the fading trail, I arrived at the ancient oak tree that stood sentinel at the edge of my land. Its massive boughs reached skyward, leaves whispering secrets to the rain. The footprints vanished at the base of the tree, merging with the natural patterns of the bark in a seamless embrace. Placing my palm against the damp bark, I felt a subtle pulsing, a rhythm that echoed the beating of a slumbering heart. Rivulets of rain traced intricate patterns down the tree trunk, forming fleeting symbols that dissolved before my eyes. In that moment, a shift in the atmosphere enveloped me, a gentle charge of energy that tingled in the air. The rain fell in cascading patterns, weaving a tapestry of light and shadow that danced to an invisible tune. Though I never laid eyes on my enigmatic visitor, their presence had transformed my garden into a realm of enchantment. Even after retreating indoors, I carried the echoes of that night with me, the lingering scent clinging to my clothes like a whispered secret. On quiet, rainy nights, I am drawn outside, hoping to discover new footprints leading through my garden. Though the visitor remains elusive, a subtle change has settled over the rain, the garden, and the ancient oak tree that stands as a silent witness to the mysteries of the night. As I pen these words by lamplight, another storm brewing in the distance, I ponder the possibility that the visitor was not merely passing through, but has woven themselves into the very fabric of this place. Sometimes, as I drift into slumber, raindrops tapping a lullaby on my window pane, I swear I hear faint footsteps moving in harmony with the falling rain, a spectral presence wandering my garden, leaving no trace but the whisper of their essence. Story 37. Deep within a forgotten corner of an abandoned library, I stumbled upon a fragile manuscript, its aged pages tinged yellow with time. Mysterious footnotes danced along the margins, teasing at a concealed narrative waiting to be unveiled. The scent of ancient parchment and ink hung heavy in the air, creating an atmosphere pregnant with intrigue, beckoning me to unravel the enigmatic tales hidden within. With a delicate touch, I turned each page, feeling the brittle leather binding whisper softly beneath my fingertips. The main text, a scholarly exploration of medieval folklore, appeared commonplace at first glance. However, it was the cryptic footnotes that captured my attention, leading me down a path veiled in shadows and secrets. At the onset, the annotations seemed innocuous, filled with scholarly references and brief explanations. But as I journeyed deeper into the manuscript, the tone shifted. The handwriting grew urgent. The ink bled into the paper with a darkness that mirrored the depths of the unknown. Academic citations gave way to personal reflections, then morphed into what appeared to be confessional entries. Words penned in haste spoke of eerie echoes in empty corridors, of elusive shadows dancing in the flickering light, of whispers that lingered long after their speakers had vanished. Lost in the labyrinth of these footnotes, I found myself drawn into a world where time seemed to bend and twist, where reality blurred at the edges. In the library's secluded nook, surrounded by towering shelves that leaned in as if listening, I lost track of hours. The warm glow of the desk lamp bathed the pages in a soft radiance, casting deep shadows between the rows of books. As daylight waned, the shadows crept and stretched like tendrils of darkness reaching out to ensnare. One footnote, in particular, seized my attention. It spoke of cryptic numbers masquerading as dates, hinting at a hidden language known only to those willing to embrace the darkness. Beneath the numbers, a trembling script revealed a tantalizing secret. The patterns emerge only in darkness. They speak of what lies between moments, in the spaces where time folds upon itself. As I immersed myself in the riddles of the manuscript, subtle shifts began to manifest in my own reality. Books materialized on my desk without my intervention. The library itself seemed to rearrange its corridors when my back was turned, leading me back to the manuscript time and time again. The rustle of pages turning echoed through the stillness, a ghostly reminder of unseen hands at work. The footnotes, once distant and detached, grew intimate, as if the unknown annotator sensed my presence across the ages. They whispered of a shared awareness, a gradual awakening to the manuscript's true nature as a vessel transcending time and space. The annotations became a lifeline, a conduit bridging past and present, weaving a tapestry of interconnected moments. Time lost its grip as I delved deeper into the labyrinthine script. The steady tick-tock of the library clock faltered, then ceased entirely, leaving me adrift in a suspended state where hours melded into eternity. The quality of light remained constant, a perpetual twilight that refused to yield to the encroaching darkness. Guided by the enigmatic footnotes, I traversed a realm of ancient wisdom and forgotten lore. Each reference led to another, forming a delicate web of interconnected knowledge. Tales of civilizations mastering the art of folding time like paper, of scholars deciphering the spaces between words, of libraries existing beyond the confines of a single moment in history, wove a mesmerizing tapestry before my eyes. As I approached the manuscript's final pages, a sense of tranquility washed over me. The frantic urgency of earlier annotations gave way to a serene acceptance, a peaceful surrender to the mysteries that lay beyond comprehension. The last footnote bore a simple message. To grasp time, one must first step outside its confines. You, the reader of these words, have already embarked on this journey. When I lifted my gaze from the manuscript, I sensed a shift in the very fabric of the silence that enveloped me. It deepened, resonated with unspoken stories that pulsed through the air like a heartbeat. The shadows between the shelves stirred with a life of their own, a subtle dance that whispered of hidden truths waiting to be unveiled. Now I frequent the library without a clear sense of when I arrive or depart. The manuscript rests in its original place, its contents ever evolving with each perusal. In the periphery of my vision, I catch glimpses of ethereal readers from distant eras, all drawn to the same enigmatic footnotes. Though we never exchange words, their presence lingers like faint echoes in my mind. The true essence of the manuscript eludes me still, shrouded in layers of mystery and wonder. Yet in the quiet interludes between the shelves, amidst the soft murmur of ancient pages, I have unearthed a different kind of knowledge, one that thrives in the liminal spaces between certainty and curiosity. I press on, guided by the whispering footnotes, navigating a maze of meaning that transcends time itself. Perhaps someday you too will chance upon this elusive manuscript. And when you do, remember that the most profound mysteries are not unraveled through revelation, but through the gentle art of contemplation and inquiry. Embrace the unknown, for it is in the shadows of uncertainty that the most profound truths lie waiting to be discovered. Story 38. In the heart of the woods, on a night bathed in the soft glow of the moon, I chanced upon a forgotten campsite, reclaimed by the tendrils of nature. The towering pines swayed with a gentle grace, their needles whispering tales long lost to time. The air, crisp and laden with the fragrances of cedar and damp earth, carried a hushed promise of hidden secrets buried beneath the layers of history. As I tread softly through the carpet of pine needles, my presence masked by the passage of seasons, I came upon the remnants of a gathering place. Weather-beaten logs encircled an ancient fire pit, now adorned with delicate mushrooms emitting a faint, ethereal light under the moon's watchful gaze. Their gentle glow pulsed like a soft breath in the stillness of the night. At the edge of the clearing stood the weathered remains of a once sturdy cabin, its wooden facade weathered and silvered by the passage of countless moons. Moonbeams filtered through the gaps in the roof, casting intricate patterns on the floor that seemed to shift and morph when my gaze turned away. The slightly ajar door swayed almost imperceptibly in the nocturnal breeze, adding a rhythmic harmony to the whispers of the towering pines. Inside the cabin, time had etched its own narrative. Dust motes pirouetted in the moon's embrace, while the aged wooden floor creaked beneath my cautious steps, as though recounting ancient tales of yore. A stone fireplace loomed on one wall, its chimney stretching skyward like a silent sentinel. Within its cold hearth, dried leaves had gathered, forming enigmatic patterns reminiscent of an unknown alphabet. On a small table near the window, an ancient journal awaited my discovery. Its pages, warped by humidity, exuded a warmth that belied the cool night air. As I gingerly unfurled its pages, the leather cover yielding with a gentle crackle, elegant script unfolded before me, recounting tales of mysterious lights among the trees and melodies carried by the wind, fading from memory upon their fleeting touch. The author of the journal chronicled how, as twilight descended, the pines would engage in whispered dialogues, speaking of transient travelers, shifts in the forest, and entities that dwelled within the shadow's embrace. The writer detailed how the mushrooms in the fire pit would radiate a heightened luminosity on certain nights, their glow pulsing in harmony with distant murmurs that lingered just beyond the threshold of hearing. As I delved deeper into the journal's revelations, a subtle shift permeated the atmosphere. Moonlight assumed a silvery hue, casting shadows of greater depth and mystery. The pines' whispers grew clearer, though their cryptic language remained elusive. A peculiar entry in the journal intrigued me. On nights of the fullest moon, such as this one, the old fire pit purportedly mirrored the heavens above, transforming into a liquid shadow despite its dry surface. Intrigued by this enigmatic claim, I ventured back outside, the journal clasped reverently in my hands. The clearing now appeared altered, though the nature of its transformation eluded my perception. The log circles seemed to weave intricate patterns unseen before, while the mushroom's radiance intensified imperceptibly. Approaching the fire pit, I beheld the journal's testament come to life. The ashen remnants now glistened with a mirror-like sheen, reflecting the celestial bodies with uncanny precision. Yet within this mirrored realm, a phenomenon beyond explanation unfolded. Amidst the mirrored stars, luminous orbs danced with graceful intent, moving to a melody known solely to them. Entranced, I lingered, attempting to decipher the pine's murmurs, striving to unravel the enigma of their ancient discourse. Seating myself upon a weathered log, the journal resting in my lap, I transcribed my own observations. Night deepened around me, time flowing with a languid cadence. The boundaries between observer and observed blurred, as if the roles intertwined in a harmonious dance. Were the lights in the fire pit spectators of my presence, or was I a mere interloper in their ethereal performance? Were the pines divulging their secrets, or merely permitting me a fleeting glimpse into their timeless dialogues? As dawn crept upon the horizon, veiled in a mist that draped the tree trunks like liquid silk, I penned a final entry in the journal. I chronicled the gradual fade of the mushroom's luminescence, the whispers transforming into the mundane sounds of daybreak, and the fire pit relinquishing its mirrored visage to the dusty remnants of the past. Placing the journal tenderly upon its table within the cabin, I acknowledged that despite my meticulous documentation, the true essence of that night would forever elude comprehension. The pines persisted in their murmurs, now weaving tales of commonplace occurrences, the ebb and flow of wind, the interplay of sunlight and shadow. Yet in the quiet recesses of my mind, when I close my eyes, I still sense the rhythmic pull of that mysterious night, the allure of enigmas that prefer to linger half-revealed, forever shrouded in the cloak of the unknown.